I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy. Think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen.
Hello and welcome listeners back to another episode of Tactical Awareness. This episode is a lead into our new segment, doing faction guides for the various Sectorials and Hyperpower factions in Infinity and 4. I'm once again joined by Owen and Dan, and in this episode, Dan is going to be sort of leading a discussion and giving us some of his insights so far into his journey playing Starmada as a lead into O12. The plan is we're going to start off with the Sectorials, just because they provide like a shorter list of models, and then once we get through the Sectorials for a given Hyperpower faction, go to that sort of vanilla / Hyperpower list and have sort of a sort of not definitive, but a at least working breakdown of what each faction has role-wise and some of their fire team stuff. So just building off of our first 6 episodes, hopefully giving some useful information as to where everything in a certain given thing fits in. So let's join Owen and Dan and get started on this next leg of the Tactical Awareness journey. All right, everybody, welcome to the new section of Tactical Awareness's series on Getting Started with Infinity. We're jumping into faction breakdowns and advanced roles, and we're starting off episode 7 with Space Cops, Starmada in the O12. But before we get too far into that, we're going to go through and talk about last week's episode, see how everybody's doing, and find out what's new with Owen and Dan. So, last episode, we did a How to Know You Are Not New Anymore, the end of the beginning, or the beginning of the end of the beginning. And I got some interesting feedback. We got a bunch of comments about people coming back into Infinity from having like lapsed during the pandemic and not played it a lot. A bunch of people basically like sharing some anecdotes about not feeling very new anymore, and that some of the like the stuff we talked about related to them, like teaching another player. A lot of Dan's stories actually like resonate with people about that, and like bringing somebody new in, and just that like that like sort of general commiseration of, I don't feel like I'm not new yet, but I'd really like to do that, so I'm going to try some of those things. So yeah, it was a pretty cool episode to end cap this first sort of run with, and so now we're going to jump in and do some more different people led things. But let's catch up with Owen and Dan and hear what you guys did this week. So what was your Infinity life like this week, Dan?
Played a bunch of games actually. I got a couple in versus Owen. I faced his dreaded double Maggie list, and I was like, I don't have anything that can kill these tags. And I died a horrible death.
Really?
And then just with the list I brought. And then, oh no, I was trying out Starmada because we're talking about Starmada today.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let's bring a Starmada list. And I'm gonna, oh dear God, everything went wrong. I don't know what's going on.
I mean,
A little bit of fun-looking rolls made it that one of the Maggies didn't die, because like Shona should have made it to the one of them. Like it was just like roll the 11 and takes a little bit longer than it should have.
Right.
And it meant that instead of just the one Maggie running up the board, it was both. And
he has no exploding close combat weapon with Varangian smoke like stopping it yet.
Well, not anymore.
Yeah,
he had his shot on the
it's
first
gone
turn, and it didn't make it, and because of that window is now closed, and it's like ASMGs, plasma rifle, and they're not enough.
Yeah, that was the primary tool he was hoping for, was an explosive close combat weapon in melee. And she's pretty good at dismantling a tag, even somebody as big as Maggie. She's got what, CC martial arts 3 and explosive,
martial arts 4, explosive AP.
Yeah, no, it's just explosive. Oh no, she adds AP to all CC attacks. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh god, and she dodges on 17s. She should have just walked through the flamethrower and on 17s and been like, whatever.
It wasn't the flamethrower. It was he smoked himself, and then he was going to spec a smoke in front to see the Guerrilla guard, because like at point blank I'll use the pistols instead of the flamethrower against them because it's opposed, and also I had spotlit them at this point as they were moving in. But he didn't make it. And then rather than that close mag doing anything, the far mag just walked and saw them from a distance and was like, shock. And that was the end.
Right.
I hit on 20s. I hit on 20s.
Yeah, maybe we just had a little bit too long fire lanes, but it was just kind of like I needed 3 smokes to be able to get to him. Just how going up the board, just because there's 2 Maggies kind of sit out in the open, and it's just like there was enough kind of crossfire that I just
you can. Yeah, I was gonna say it's you can usually kind of like you can usually zigzag your smoke and not even be in it during the moves to get almost anywhere. But you're right, it'll take too many orders sometimes to do that. And if you've got a Maggie watching the other side, then you can't really.
All it was 3 smokes. The first smoke went off fine. The second smoke went off fine, and the third smoke that I needed, I couldn't.
Also went off, and then the 4th smoke didn't go off.
What was it? The 4th?
Yeah, because you had to smoke at the hallway for the right Maggie, then the left Maggie, then you moved up and smoked a second time, and then you threw the smoke out of the smoke to get the last one.
I probably could have deployed a little better, to be honest, but either way, it was a lot of eggs in one basket. That Shona was the really only person who can kill him, and Shona dies really fast if she's not in close combat. And even then, it's still risky.
And I did say, like, had he made it and not killed me and just been in close combat, the Red Furies would have just shot her. If I kill my tag, that's fine.
I'm a little better off, but not a lot better off. But anyways, but then we played against who did you bring?
Shazvasti.
Oh yeah, Shazvasti. And then I won with a booty list.
Oh,
I brought six booty rolls, 5.
All the booty.
And it was
something like that.
It was a good time.
What cool fun bucks did you find in the booty rolls?
Both the diggers got Panzerfausts.
Oh, diggers are so good. I forgot you printed up some proxy diggers, didn't you? Aren't they amazing? I can't wait for like a legit digger
2
model.
Wounds. It's like, why do they have 2 wounds?
Cheap with 2 wounds too. Holy moly!
If they're 1 wound, I still think they're pretty good. But with 2 wounds, hey. And then they both got Panzerfausts. The one motorized bounty hunter got a multi-sniper rifle, which he used to kill a taiga, which was fun.
That's crazy.
And then what did the mech get? What did the tag get?
Yeah, adhesive launcher.
Oh, that's right. So when I ran out of ammo with my Panzerfaust and Flam and Sprint, I could shoot something long range still.
That's funny. You rolled something you already had and then couldn't reroll because you don't get to reroll if you have something that sucks.
No, he doesn't have an adhesive launcher.
Who am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of Ride Stoppers on your Zeta.
It's not a Zeta. This is
no, not the Zeta. The
Trip Hammer.
Oh, the Trip Hammer. Oh, you took the digger tag. Got it.
Yeah.
Right.
It was meant to be like just a silly list, but then it kind of worked out. That's cool. Mostly it was the heavy machine gun remote that did most of the work. But hey, who's counting?
I mean, those things sometimes become absolute heroes. Sometimes they die holding a corner, and sometimes they are the hero you need. That just kill everything.
They were the hero. Although he laid a mine, 2 smiley faces outside my deployment zone, and laid 2 mines that absolutely ruined my day. And I was like, Lawkeeper, go. Oh, shoot. That does actually hit the Lawkeeper. He fails his dodge, fails his armor. There goes the Lawkeeper in his bot. All right. At least that mine's gone. The other mine, I'll discover. I get it. Spend 5 shots on it, like 5 dice. Doesn't blow up.
You missed it quite a bit.
I was hitting it. You just made all your armor saves.
No. The first shot you just missed. You just missed. God. And then one of them hit on the next shot, and I made the armor save, and then you had to shoot it like 2 more times before it actually died.
Yeah, that's when the red haze goes down. You're like, I should have just dodged through this 3 orders ago, but now I'm committed, and I'm going to make sure this out.
He couldn't do it.
Where if I activated any model, 2 or 3 models got hit for free.
Yeah.
And like one of them was a Cyber Ghost, and I'm like, Cyber Ghost isn't good at dodging, nor is he good at getting.
And the other one was the TR bot, who also didn't want to eat a mine.
Who needed to live. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I think I did it properly. I just had bad dice, but then it all worked out because I won in the end.
That's funny. I wonder when your comeuppance with the dual Maggie's going to come on. I wonder when that's going to be. There's going to be some list that just that doesn't care about it. I wonder if it's when you like run into combined army and like a speculo killer, because like a speculo killer is gonna wreck their day. There's a bunch of like things that would be bad drops into the Magariba Guard. I'm trying to think of, actually the Zeta probably would beat them up too, because he's got dice advantage and he's got AP
Yeah.
on the
The thing is, like,
HRMC.
if he can see him, because like he's got to hide during the
It's hard to hide those things, man. They're so huge,
Right.
and you can
But
call
it's-
plus. You just need to see its bum. You know what I mean?
no, but I need to hide if he's going.
Oh,
through.
the Zeta. Yeah.
And so
like,
if I'm
and
hiding, then he just drops mines all around me.
Yeah, if it's tag v tag, it's whoever is active is gonna win.
I don't know, man. Make your Zeta when you're playing missions, make your Zeta the key op so that he can dodge on fucking 14s.
Right. But the trick is you shoot mines on both sides of him and then look at him with your HMG.
Again, I'm just saying he just dodges, and then if you
I roll a
can get him
dodge,
HMG,
and you're like, dodge on an 11, and I shoot you 4 times.
I mean, he's the only type that can just stick to the back of a building all the way back in your deployment zone. You know, like,
Then he gets no cover.
sure, if you walk around the whole table to get to him. I'm just saying there's a lot of places he can stick to that.
I don't think
It would
you're
take you, like,
realizing
6
just
orders
how
to get there.
fast this list is.
I know, I get it. They're
It's
Magariba
got
Guards, they're all
15
6'4".
orders on that Magariba Guard.
Yeah, it's true, I guess. We'll get there if he wants to get there.
It's got
Yeah.
quad tack aware. Like, you can give one Magariba Guard 3 tack awares if you just position correctly before you get into your 10 order pool.
That's true.
Moving
That's
6-4.
true.
Yeah, and you don't want to poke out because they'll just murder you with the machine gun. So you have to hide, and then yeah, and then maybe some hidden hackers, some razors, maybe. But even then, do they have a tin bot built in?
Yeah, they've got ECM hacking. I don't think it's like perfect by any stretch. Had a definitely close game against Ariadna at one point. We just couldn't finish off his like damage 16 AP HMG, and I'm like, just die already. I can't let
Yeah.
you be alive in the
And
active turn.
it's one wound, no wound, and Capita just won't go down.
Yep.
So no, the list is definitely, but it's like, if you tech for that list, is it also a good list against other?
Yeah. It's
That's
a
the
skew. It's a
tricky part.
skew you need to skew into, kind of, and that's the rub, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Is
But,
how do you take it apart?
But now I've experienced it, and then I tried to play a couple. Every time I try to play Starmada, I played one at the game store this week, and
How'd that go?
died a horrible death.
What was
I
it
don't know
against?
It was against Ariadna, the Highlanders, or whatever.
Caledonians?
Yeah.
Was it Amon's army?
Yes.
Nice.
And I just
Close
I
your
just got
eyes and you
taken-
can
I
imagine
just
what
got-
that army is.
I just got taken apart. It was like, oh no, POW 17 AP heavy. I die.
They're $1 million ammunition, because they show up with the Tuzium rounds that are all AP on every gun. Or
No,
Type
but
2.
it's the +2 damage on that guy.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what makes
no, I
it
know.
crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah, just waiting for that Type 2 heavy machine gun. That's when Ariadna really comes into its own, when they figure out how to fit those bullets into an HMG. That's
Basically,
that's
despite
the day.
all the bonuses of fire teams, I feel like it's harder to use fire teams because like you're restricted how you have to move. So we'll talk more about
Let's
that
talk
later.
about that. Yeah, that's a really interesting lesson. I mean, I think that's the conversation we had during the fire team episode, right? There's these sort of overt advantages, but once you play the game for a while and you realize how unit diversity can benefit you, those sort of like hyperpower factions, taking like the mainline factions that have everything in them, it's so powerful that when you can mix and match things you can't mix and match in the sectorials. And I think they've done a good job of doing that, of kind of curating the sectorials so you get these sort of like overt advantages of being able to create fire teams, but you just don't have like you have that as a big primary tool, and it's kind of like the show pony, but you don't have these more subtle tools that could be really useful when you run into a skew like double Magariba Guards, or lots of like war bands like in Caledonians and Camo and stuff like that, where you're like, oh, I don't have really any ability to do X or do Y. I have no camo markers in this entire faction. I went to that day, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that there was literally no camouflage at all in Starmada. Like zero. It's like you
That
can
was
cyber
the
mask
moment.
guys.
That was my moment that my interest in Starmada died on the vine.
You're just like, oh, this is like a really specific type of list. I can't do this really specific thing. So
So like I guess we can start with like my main flaws for Starmada.
Well, maybe I don't think we need to get into Starmada yet. I want to introduce
Okay,
some
fine.
new concepts and stuff, and I want to go through the units. I want to go through the roles and units and stuff.
Very well.
We'll stick to a format here, and then maybe we can do that as the wrap up. That sounds like a good idea for like
All of them?
our impressions. No.
Jesus Christ.
Not all of them. We're doing overviews. We're not gonna go through every
Zoning
single
out
thing here.
already.
No. Go through roles. So, but one of the things I want to do before we jumped to actually talking about the faction Starmada is talking about the format and the process for this. So, what seemed to be the most useful actually was starting with Dan for two reasons. One, because he's got the newest sort of like take on this, which I think is useful for the listeners, for you guys listening out there, and also because Starmada and O12 are the shortest list of factions. It's one sectorial and one hyperpower faction. So if we're going to do like a proof of concept here, this would be quick to do. This episode we can go through the sectorial, and the next episode we'll go through like the stuff that wasn't in the sectorial, and then that's where we can get this like impressions between the two and like what the differences are. And also to introduce some new subtypes, because this was something that came up in the roles, the very first episode we did, where we're talking about roles in your list building, and some examples and new concepts we could talk about are subtypes for those main roles. Because people were like, but what about when they do this, and what about do that? And I thought introducing them as concepts and talking about them might be useful. So let's do that, and then we'll jump in and actually talk about Starmada. So the new concepts were for our 4 roles, and these were gunfighters, midfielders, support pieces, and button pushers. And these are the ones that came up in the comments and through us kind of discussing over the last 6 episodes. So for the gunfighter subtypes, there was point blank gunfighters. So folks with like shotguns, grenades, and trench hammers. And they'd also have mod stacking, usually like surprise shot, marker states, camo, or mimetism. So you won't get any of those, Dan, except for the last one. And then they also might have things like smoke or movement or deployment skills to deliver them, like parachutists to come in the flank. That was when they came up a lot. Like it's basically like a subtype of a gunfighter, because they don't have a traditional gun like an HMG or a Spitfire or something like that that's gonna win that ranged gunfight. They have to get up close to be really effective, but they're still gunfighter. They're still going face to face and using their skills to do stuff. Good examples would be like Usha, right? She's like those assault pistols. She's a boarding shotgun. She has camo. She can sneak up on people with like her like superior deployment stuff, and then ambush them at 8 inches and either kill them with weighted dice or just like her like super mod stacking. Then there was mid-range brawlers, so guns with lots of dice, or a small fire team option to push that higher, like a multi-marksman or Spitfire. Things like Harris teams, where you might take like a multi-marksman rifle and up it to like a 4-shot burst bonus using weighted dice, and you're trying to sit inside that 8 to 16 band against guns that go 0 at 16. So this is like the gunfighter who wants to take out guys like missile launchers, rocket launchers, HMGs, where their positive modifiers don't start until over 16. And they might use same things like mimetism, visors, armor, or just being multi-wound to get the job done, and have built-in fail safes. Like if they're in a fire team, things like a trailing like doctor or paramedic that's with them, or the usual Toho BS of, you know, triads and Ferroware, Simio bombs and stuff like that. And then the opposite, that's a long range hunters. They have guns that shoot over 24 with positive modifiers. So things like HMG, sniper rifles, rocket launchers, missile launchers. They'll have visors. So things like biometric visor or multispectral visor, camo, surprise mods, same stuff, or like remotes with support wear. And they can ARO maybe better than normal too. So they might have like fire team options or neurokinetics or total reaction too. Long range hunters are the guys that you send to kill those short range gunfighters and brawlers, right? Because they get to outside that 16-inch band or 24-inch band, and they still keep their positive mods. So it's all about kind of knowing the versatility range of your gunfighter piece, and almost no gunfighter piece in Infinity has every range band being good. There's almost none in the game, right? Like a missile launcher is actually only good over 24. Sniper rifles are good over 16, so are HMGs. Spitfires are good.
This is why you play booty and cross your fingers.
And hope your Shaolin monk buys an HMG, and then you've got a midfielder with a machine gun. Did you guys have any thoughts about that? That's kind of my synopsis of what we talked about, but that seemed like a way of breaking down those gunfighter classifications into some like a useful way of like talking about them. So like point blank, mid range, and long range. What were your guys' thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree with everything there. And that's kind of like my thoughts exactly as I've been like learning all the different things of like, oh yeah, like it's nice to have a variety of things on your list. So when you go against the different weapons, you can try to get a positive range bound while they have a negative, and because like when I was against Maggie and it was like close up, and I was like, I get a positive, but he's at suppressing, and we both get 3 dice. This is hard.
Yeah.
And so it's like getting something a bit farther back to be able to shoot them, and also, so
it's right tool for right job, and I think that's something
Yeah.
that like you start to realize, like your tools come more readily to hand when you can like classify and identify those pieces in your list that are good for a particular engagement. Like, who should you send is kind of that like paralysis question people have mid game, where you see a guy like with his orders, like, and he's counting them in his hand, he doesn't really know what to do. It's he's trying to access that information of like, which of these pieces that I still have left at my disposal is right for this particular job, and what's my best odds of success. Do you have any thoughts on that one, Owen?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think too much about this. I play like
you're just
this feels like it's gonna work out. Yeah,
It's
it's all instinct. It's not coherent enough to be like, and this is how I would classify this kind of unit, and I would bring that in my list because of these reasons. It's like, breaker rifles are cool. Let's bring 5.
You bring chaos to everything, Owen. I love it. I actually in the chat just earlier, we were talking about episode stuff. And you were quoting, I think it was Sun Tzu to somebody, and then they quoted back Mike Tyson. and I said, Tyson
I
was right.
I just made that up, and I'm assuming that it's a quote from somewhere.
It was Sun Tzu. It was Sun Tzu, I'm pretty sure. But then I said that Mike Tyson had it right. I interpret Mike Tyson's "everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth" with knowing the rules and winning the game aren't as related as some people think they are.
Yeah, I only need to know the rules well enough that you think I know the rules.
Well, you need to know the rules well enough that you can move around, that you can do everything legally. You know what I mean? But you don't need to like.
That's not true.
You definitely do need to. Oh, Jesus Christ! Okay. All right, we're here already. He's trying to push my buttons.
I only need to know enough that you think I know it.
I've started drinking. I've started drinking earlier in these episodes now because Owen's trying to push my buttons earlier.
I don't know what you're talking
about. So we're into midfielders then. And I've got 3 classifications or sort of subtypes for midfielders here for talking about them later on. So the first one's a peace trader, and the things that would exemplify a peace trader, and what that means is you're trying to trade a lower point value piece for a higher one. Is things like direct templates, right? So you've got like chain rifles or heavy flamethrowers or nanopulsers, stuff like that. They're cheap, right? That's important too. You want them to be cheap point wise because you want them to. You're expecting them to die, and you're expecting them to get blown away usually, but to kill something more expensive than them when they go. And then either equipment deployment or movement skills to get them up the table or onto those more expensive pieces, so like smoke and stuff too. The next one would be camo spam. Owen talks a lot about this when he's talking about Sundic Butt and how much he loved Sundic Butt because it creates lots of camo tokens. So cheap. They have like camouflage or
that is definitely not the reason.
That
is an added bonus.
No, I know, but his decoy camo is free, right? Effectively, it's another piece on the table.
Absolutely.
And then usually advanced deployment skills too, because you're trying to litter the table with a bunch of unknowns that just make the order efficiency of your opponent go down because they have to either waste it identifying maybe nothing, maybe a mine, maybe a model like a unit, and it's just this sort of like psychological game of like we know there's something there, we don't know what it is.
I mean, the current rules iteration means that you can immediately negate the fact that he's a mine by asking what the mimetism value is on your camo marker. So like you always know who his Sunduck Butt and his decoy,
right? In the camouflage state that does not place the marker. Camouflage markers can possess the mimetism skill. It's called it specifically. It's just mimetism. So camouflage markers indicate that mod level.
So you just ask and you go, hey, does he have mimetism? And if so, what level? And you're like, oh, he doesn't have mimetism. Oh, that's the Sunduck Butt then.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the effect, you're actually supposed to place a token that's a different color even. You're supposed to place the yellow token for Sunduck Butt, the green token for the mine, and then like a TO guy would be the purple token. There's different tokens now for the different states.
They're always buzzed.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the new art stuff.
Oh, I see.
Because it's the stuff from Code 1. But yeah, no, it's specifically called out. So that's why it's specifically called out that they have a mimetism skill.
There you go.
But nothing else would, because it's the token that has the skill, not actually the trooper. So technically you're not declaring any information with the trooper. It's the token gains that skill when they transform into it. Interesting.
Now you know how to sniff out whether or not it's a Sundeck button.
And
Also whether or not it's a mine or whatever. Because like if they have Mim 3, then it'll be a mine. But if it's Mim 6, it's not a mine. It's a dude.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
we had this
same
conversation.
with Daylamis, actually. Daylamis I don't think have any mimetism, but they do have surprise shot and camouflage. So you have yellow markers for your Daylamis and then green markers for your mines.
Neat.
Now I have to repaint a bunch of my camo markers.
Yeah, or use the official ones. Or even just put 0, -3, -6 on them, I guess. So then crossover is the last one I came up with. So crossover midfielders could also be button pushers or gunfighters. And I think crossover is a term that's going to come into a lot of these because there are some that can also double duty. And so I think crossover pieces are just useful to talk about. And then support pieces, the one we came up with is like a dynamic lieutenant. Can they do more than just sleep on a roof? Do they have extra orders for an NCO, or do they have the inspiring presence skill? Or are they like a crossover piece where they could be a gunfighter, like a late turn 3 lieutenant that stands up with an HMG? There's a really popular Zhu Yong lieutenant with regeneration, and turn 3 he just stands up and uses that extra order to go gunfight and kill things. He sleeps until round 3 when lost lieutenant doesn't matter, right? You don't care. You just go and run and gun. If you die, you don't care because it's the last turn of the game. You're not having a turn after that anyway.
I actually love that when it's like, my lieutenant could die. Meh.
Yeah, and then you're just like YOLO, and you just get up and go and fight. So those were the subclasses I came up with. I didn't come up with any real subclasses for button pushers because really the only one would be crossover pieces, right? I think the button push ability of just the mobility and specialist tag kind of is like a catch-all, and then they would just cross over with these other 3 because the other 3 are really about where you are in the battlefield and what you're doing, right? The gunfighter piece is going and picking fights or standing up to pick a fight in the ARO. The support pieces are sitting back usually in your deployment zone or watching your rear for the deployment zone, and then the piece trader pieces are obviously in the midfield and up table, basically trying to hold the center. So we can just refer to that as we go forward. And I think it's now time to lead into Dan and jump in and talk about the space cops. So 012, and this is Space Cops Part 1, Starmada. So again, a callback warning. We're going to refer to some roles in fireteam and mission concepts from episodes 1 to 3 in season 1. And if you find that stuff confusing, you should check them out before you go into any of the further faction stuff, because we're not going to do any more explaining. All right, so everyone loves faction discussions, and we're going to spend the next part of season 1 doing faction profiles for those armies that we're currently playing and working on, starting with 012. And like I said earlier, why 012 is because they're the easiest outside of Toha to begin with, as they have only a single sectorial, and then we can dive right into the main hyperpower faction. So before we get into actually the profiles and stuff, Dan, tell me about, since you've started playing them, who are 012 and like what kind of game do they play? Like, if what makes them stand out in your experience so far in Infinity?
I'm not sure if they really stand out. They're kind of just like good at everything, but not excellent at anything necessarily. I guess what makes them different is they have a lot of more of the EM ammunition and adhesive, or the para ammunition.
A lot of states. They can apply a lot of states to people.
Yeah, and so I got one or two times I've gotten like the ECM ammo off on like a remote or heavy infantry or a tag. I haven't gotten a tag yet. Oh, that'd be the dream. But it's like, reset -12 is the only thing you can do. It seems really good.
Yeah, you just literally can't do it to a Pano tag because they're all whip 12.
I hope you roll
it's
a
just
1.
the Dragos is a 13, I think, and everybody else is whip 12. So you have to go in. You have to actually go repossess it. That's what you have to send a hacker over there and then possess it again, or spend the command token to get rid of it.
Isn't the 1 always a success though, or no?
Nope. If your side goes to 0, you just can't pass.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 is as good as 0. I mean, 1 in 20 when you have 3 turns.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. And sorry, I'm talking about possession again. You were talking about EM isolated.
Oh yeah.
And immobilized. I would agree with you. I would tend to say that the other thing that might make 012 stand out is they kind of have Pano tech and stats, although they don't go all the way to 15 usually on their heavy infantry, not quite as well gunfighter trained. But their tech level is really high. But they also have a bunch of CC and midfield options that Pano doesn't really have, without like going to mercenaries and stuff. Things like the Varangian, the Cyber Ghosts. They have access to a bunch of Aleph stuff like Andromeda. And then their Crushers and Raptors and like the Tango and the Raven Eye are all like great midfield sort of like states and control pieces that Pano doesn't have a lot of. They tend to pay a premium for their skirmishers, like their TO skirmishers. They have like the Zulu Cobras and the Echo Bravos and stuff like that who can kind of get up table. But nothing as disposable as Varangians, and you get the Varangians in spades.
Mm-hmm. Well, Starmada only gets 2 of them.
That's 2 more than Pano gets. Period.
Right.
the AVA is not as important as getting lots.
It's true.
Because
the Varangians are quite good. I love them.
Yeah, you have an infinite percentage more Varangians than Pano gets.
Yeah, so Starmada, I mean, I've been mostly playing O12, and so I've been dabbling with Starmada, especially this week because I knew we were going to be talking about it. But I just seem to be struggling with the faction and trying to figure out what they do or why I should take them over O12. And I'm kind of coming up kind of empty.
Well,
I really don't like Starmada right now.
Well, the army. Well, you also lost 3 games this week, so let's not get too down on Starmada. But let's start with their options for fire teams, because that's a good place to parse the rest of this. So what can you take as fire teams in this list?
Okay, so for fire teams, it looks like you kind of have the one option for the core. I mean, you have a few options, but I kind of one realistic option, unless you want to do like full balls to the wall, one crazy core. And that's like Kappa, Bluecoat, Raven Eye, and they're all saying the same security fire team. So that's really nice, where you can get an easy fire team bonus. What's it called? Coherency bonus, or the
composition bonus?
Composition bonus.
Yeah.
We'll call it a pure team.
Sure.
Because that's easier to say.
That's easier to say. Yeah, then it's less syllables.
Yeah,
that is like literally everything in that fire team gets composition. Like Cho, Raven Eye, Bluecoat, Kappa, they all get it. And you have access to 1 core, and you do defense really well. Like you do defense better than you do offense in this list, I think, too, with all the stuff you mentioned earlier. So that's a pretty solid core. And you get access to 1 core. What's your Harris options?
So you can, there is another core of Neokas and a core of Betas that you can take,
right?
But they're a lot more expensive, and so you're doing like half your list as a core if you're doing those.
Yeah, and they have no keyword friends either. So those 2 you're taking, not if you want the composition bonus, it's nothing but Beta Troopers and nothing but Neokas. And
with the Neokas, you can't
bronzes.
Take bronzes.
You can take 2 bronzes, but I think that's it, because they've got the wildcard option. Yeah, they had a wildcard option for that, but they can wildcard and other stuff too.
Yeah, so it's what's nice about the Kappa, Bluecoat, Raven Eye, Cho is that you can do a 5-man team for like 60, 70 points. And so it's like 5 orders. You can put them in their own fire group if you want or not. And it's just kind of, you can have a cool ARO piece with like a sniper, missile, rocket launcher, or HMG if you want, or whatever. It's just, you don't want to be running into Bluecoats. They're good with the biometric visor and Discover. So I think they get Discover +6 with biometric visors. So smiley face coming to assassinate people is harder. So yeah, they're really good defense. The offensive ones, you get access to Hector in the Neoka fire team. And it's like, do you have to take a Neoka in a Neoka fire team?
You do have to take at least 1, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't just go. Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, but you could also just take them as a Harris, right? So like, if you go 5 Neokas, then cool. But if you're looking at using that security fire team for 5, then you're really just picking what your Harris is going to be after that. And we can talk about that at the end when we go over all the fire team things. But you could take any of these kind of like unkeywordy guys in a Harris and not suffer any penalties, because the Harris doesn't care what the composition bonus is. They're just going to get that +1 burst and that extra order efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Neokas are okay. They get the BS attack +1 damage and the terrain 0G and climbing plus, so they're quite mobile and often will get super jump or +1 distance with climbing plus in a lot of the missions. So they're pretty good. They got the medium to long range weapons throughout them.
Yeah, you got rocket launchers, HMGs, multi-rifles. So they're decent gunfighters for what they have with BS attack +1 damage. So you're looking at like damage 14 multi-rifles, which is cool. Damage 14 chain colts. So interestingly, they all kind of cross over with peace trading too. Because if you walk up that fire team up close, you're going to get double tapped with like a dozen chain colts at the same time, which is pretty cool. And there's even a parachutist option, so you can midfield them as well. You can
outside of the fire team, yeah.
Outside the fire team, yeah. You can pull Epsilons and Hector in there too. Obviously, Hector is a murder piece we can talk about in a second, but you get a visor option too, which is kind of cool. What about
Not
the Beta
good versus
Troopers?
Maggies?
No, he's not. That's not his job. Beta troopers
I tried
beta
that.
troopers are like your heavy infantry team.
Yeah,
they've actually got
beta
some
troopers are
structure.
cool. They have the extra structure. They got a dodge +3. They got mimetism. They got climbing plus. And so every time I'm taking they have a doctor. They got a killer hacker. And
Well, the
just a
doctor
general
doesn't work on them,
specialist.
so the doctor's really only useful if you're mixing the Epsilon, Hector, or Bixie in there because they have
Yeah.
structure, not wounds, right? So they're there to fix the 3 tag-alongs if you're using them as a Harris, not a core.
Yeah, so like a beta Harris option would be a 1 beta doctor and then like an Epsilon Hector or Bixie, or one of the wild cards, like
a bronze,
a Psycop or a bronze.
And then you got a couple duos.
Yeah,
the one duo is weird. The bronze fire team is such a weird duo.
Yeah, so in 012 they also just have like bronzes available as a fire team, like 2 bronzes, and it just seems pricey, and it's like, I don't know. I don't really get it.
I mean, they are kind of bears, right? They have 360 visors, total immunity, 2 wounds, armed 4 BTS 6.
Yeah.
So,
if anyone has any kind of hackers though, they can get screwed over pretty quick.
Yeah, BTS 6 isn't great, that's for sure. But EM close combat weapon is legit.
Yes, it is.
And they can get paramedic and specialist too. So you can get but they're spendy. They're all over 50 points, which is crazy.
Yeah. And you get access to a Knight of Santiago in that fire team as well.
And that could be your hacking defense because you can take a killer hacker Knight of Santiago too that can follow them around.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's still a killer hacker one of those.
I really like the Lawkeeper Oko duo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can get 2 Lawkeepers, which is just running around fast. You're not bringing the bots, though, which is what makes Lawkeepers really cool, I think. So there's that, but the Oko is your forward observer bot. And so getting attack aware on any fire team is always really good.
And Lawkeeper's relatively inexpensive, too, because most of he has like a multi-pistol, I think. Like, he's got a bunch of like kind of brawler guns, and he's got a multi-pistol because he's supposed to be the Judge Dredd. So he has a +1 damage multi-pistol, which is neat, and he's PS12, but he's not that expensive. Like if you take the boarding shotgun, he's only 19 points. And you can have him tag along with you're looking at 35 points for the 2 of them, and they're super fast and order efficient, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and they're both specialists. Or most of the time you probably will make the Lawkeeper a specialist if you bring him. And so he can be at like 20 points with a combi rifle and a chain rifle. And he can just run up, grab a box, and run away, kind of thing, or just 3rd turn, get across the board to wherever you need him to be.
Sure, going 8-6, which is crazy fast.
Or objectives.
Badlands Patrol.
So I did like that duo. That felt good.
And then there's the weirdest one, which is the Chaxas. Like, I don't even know why these are in here. They're on loan from Toha, I guess. There's a bunch of factions that get Chaxa long arms, and I don't understand what the point of them is. But you can make a Harris of them, and they have bioimmunity.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I have bioimmunity and +1 damage BS, and they're only BTS 0, so bioimmunity just means they're always taking stuff on their armor. That's weird. They're a very weird unit.
They got terrain total. That's not bad. But
I mean, in this it's good, but in next season maybe it won't be right. Next season it might all be gone.
So and then
it's just
look at those.
But then it's Team Varangian, and that's your favorite. That's Shona's best friend.
You do lose your impetuous order, but being able to run up with Shona, it didn't work out for me, but I can see how it could be good.
Well, then they can also take cover, which is a big deal, right? All of a sudden they can take cover
because they are armored too. It's like, that's not bad.
They can take cover, and they give her +1 burst to her melee attacks because you send them in as well.
Oh yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, well, the plot thickens. That's where you really take Maggie apart in a turn. Is when Varangian goes in with his weapon too, and then now you're fighting AP close combat burst 2 on 26s, which is a lot of dice. Your wild cards are Cyclops, bronzes, which we said at the Nyoka tag, Shona, and Parvati, who's the super doctor engineer, and then the Tengu FTO, who's an interesting unit as well. So you got
the hollow mask, so he could pretend to be different things, and then surprise.
That's right. Yeah, he could just pretend to be a chappy bot if you want as well. He can be anybody you want.
But he could pretend to be any of the wild cards and kind of like throw your opponent off a little bit.
Yeah, I would just always have him be Hector. Just have 3 Hectors and just play shell games with Hectors. Have a Hector in every fire team. And just screw with people.
Oh, and he can take jammers too.
Oh yeah. Yep. He's the trolliest Hector.
Oh, so he's a Hector, and as they come to like prepare to jump around the corner at him, he's like jammer.
He just jammers them. Yeah. He jammers your avatar. He jammers your whatever it is. He jammers the hacker that's coming to like stop Hector or whatever.
All right. Turns out I need to find this model.
Fair enough. All right, so let's go through some classifications for the unit list you have. Let's talk about your gunfighters. The first one I noticed is the Epsilon. So let's talk about what makes that guy a good gunfighter.
I mean, Epsilon can take 3 good weapons: the sniper rifle, the heavy machine gun, and then the shock marksman rifle.
So he's got 2 long range hunter ones and a brawler profile.
Yeah, and then he's got multi-spectre visor level 2. He's got bioimmunity with BTS3, mimetism, immunity shock, climbing plus. He's kind of got it all. The only bad thing is he's got only 1 wound with no wounding. He doesn't have any bonuses. So
just
if you flick him, if you flick him, he's down for the count.
Yeah, but he's worthwhile putting maybe in, and you can wildcard him too, can't you? No, you can't wildcard him. No, he just exists in 1, 2 of the fire teams. You can put him in beta troopers or neokas.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like a grab all you want a visor. You stick him in with a doctor or paramedic, and he's good to go. He's your portable visor. And he's bioimmunity, so he's gonna take everything on his BTS.
Yeah.
Of 3, which is cool too. Actually, slightly higher armor than he looks like he is. So yeah, so you go. So 2 different range band brawler basically, and then you got your beta troops who are also obviously going to be able to do some gunfighting.
Yeah, beta troops are fantastic just because they're tough, and when they get into problems, they can dodge really easily. On like a 15, they also have immunity shock and mimetism -3 and remote presence, and so even if you bring them down, the odds that there's a corpse left behind that you can bring back up with an engineer is high. They got climbing plus as well, which is fantastic. So you can I love crawling over terrain. That's probably my favorite thing to do in Infinity. It's just like, I'm gonna go around this corner and blah, blah, blah. It's just like ants or something, just like just beetles climbing over shit.
Yeah, they don't have any guns. They go short range through brawler, but they don't have any long range guns though. So that's kind of a it's not a downside.
It's not long range, I guess.
That's what I'm saying is they're not long range hunters, right? They stop at 24 being effective basically.
Yeah,
they've got the boarding shotgun and submachine gun, but they do hit all those criteria, right? They have mods like mimetism mods. They have extra wounds and remote presence to keep them in the fight. They have dodge bonus. They have climbing plus to get there. BS13 super respectable, and they've got a bunch of different profiles for getting that. And they've got some crossover too because you can take a hacker, a doctor, and a specialist operative. And they can even piece trade a little bit because they got +1 burst nanopulsers. They have burst 3 nanopulsers, and if they're in a fire team, you put them in a Harris. So getting hit with 3 against your BTS templates, Ariadne hates that. And they have the extra wounds in the structure and stuff to be able to go into a short range of like a camo marker and just whip 13 their intuitive attack and hit them with 3 nanopulsar templates. Nobody likes that in Ariadne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always enjoyed beta troopers, like I said before, so they're pretty good.
And being linkable is cool. Having the linkable option, that's kind of an attractive thing in here. I don't know. You're looking at what? How many points? They're like 30 to 40 points each. So if you're going to go 5-man core team, you're talking 200 points almost. Like there's not really a cheap 5-man core team for beta troopers.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I don't know if I ever would do that. This is my problem with the fire teams is I just can't seem to move them effectively around because no one has like advanced deploy or like forward deployment rather that like can link or do anything, and so it's like, okay, it's time to move up the board.
Yeah, unless they're defensive and sleeping like the security team is, it's a bit harder to manage, especially when you're getting started.
So I think Starmada is fine on defense, but it's just offense. I just can't seem to find anyone if everyone has their heads down or around corners.
Gotcha. Well, then let's talk about your favorite offensive piece for gunfighting, the Zeta.
Yeah. Okay. Zeta is always good. Zeta is wonderful. Basically, if between what's the good range on a Zeta? 16 to
32.
32. So if you're within 16 to 32, he's got climbing plus, so he finds the vector and then 5 dices you, and you better roll a crit against him and hope he doesn't, because he's BS14. He's got he's just great.
He's got pretty much everything you want. He's got extra wounds, great armor, good BS, extra damage on his hyper rapid magnetic cannon. He's got dice advantage. So he does the only thing, I mean, he can technically cross over, I guess, with the Zet bot. They can get out of him. He can like detach his head and have it go for a walk and push a button, but that's risky. I don't know if I've ever actually wanting to do that.
I did that with the Trip Hammer one game, which you cannot take in Starmada, but I have done it with a tag before, and it seemed like the best option at the time. So depends on the state of the board, but no, usually he's hanging out on rooftops.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's next on your gunfighter list?
What else is a good gunfighter?
I had Oko. I had Oko next. Just going down the list and
I've never really used them as gunfighters, but I guess they are.
I mean, they're mid-range gunfighters, but they do all that stuff well now. They get there with climbing plus. They've got immunity shock. They've got the marksmanship, right? They got the free order.
Yeah, with the tack aware and they got sensor too, so they're really good at taking out camo markers that are poking around corners.
They feel like a short range brawler, and they're cheap.
Yeah,
only 16 points. You almost could cross them over with like a peace trader because they're so cheap. You know what I mean? You could send them out to go hunt like camo that's in the midfield and trade down or trade up if they can find like a button pusher who's in camo in the middle of the table and just go gun him down, or a hacker or something that's like sleeping on a roof.
I guess it's always risky with the hacker because he could probably hack you back unless it's a killer hacker.
I'm just saying you can climb to somewhere you can just see him. Like where you can't do anything, and then it's just like the enemy cannot push a button if you disable their hand.
That's true.
I had Knights of Santiago on my list after that for gunfighter, but they're kind of all over the place because they have tons of button pushing too, because they're literally all specialists. They're a crazy profile in this, but they do gunfight quite well. The problem is that they got frenzy, which means once they kill something, they lose cover.
Oh, they get impetuous?
Yeah, they become impetuous once they kill something. So if you keep them with a bronze in a duo, then they don't, which is cool. They never activate frenzy.
Now that's even if at range, anything?
The frenzy skill is negated as long as they're in a fire team, period.
Right, but frenzy activates if
kill anybody,
right?
Yeah, as long as you kill somebody, period. If you cause them to enter the unconscious or null state or dead state, you activate frenzy and become impetuous for the rest of the game. But it's not applied while you're in a fire team. So you can kill as many people as you want, and you won't, even if you break the fire team afterwards, you haven't counted as being under the frenzy skill, so you don't become impetuous.
Unless you don't actually have to kill anybody. You just have to make them lose one of their wounds or structure.
Yes, sorry, you cause damage. Is what I should say. Yeah,
cause any damage.
Yeah.
His combat jump mode is pretty cool.
What's that?
His combat jump is pretty cool.
But he can't be in a duo if he does that.
Right, but with your Evo remote, he jumps on a 17 or 16 rather. And then he's a killer hacker just in the middle of their team and also has mines.
Yep. Shock mines, decharges, sporting shotgun.
I might frenzy after this, but I'm going to do it after I kill everybody in this backfield.
Yeah, he's got some neat stuff. And remember, when he killer hacks too, he can turn into a impact or a impersonation token at the end of his order or whatever to hide afterwards, which is nice for a heavy infantry guy.
Unless he's frenzied, in which case he can't.
In which case he can't anymore. That's right, because he's too busy freaking out.
Oh, really?
You can't enter a marker state, I don't think, while you're frenzied. You can't camouflage. I don't think you can turn into I don't think you can use that program either.
Oh yeah, they lose any marker state they're in and cannot re-enter those states.
I can't re-enter those states. Yeah, he forgets how to push the buttons that tells people he's grandma.
It's the blood in his eyes.
That's right. This grandma's covered in blood and is holding a shotgun. We're not really sure what's going on with her. Let's talk about Hector, Big H, as a gunfighter. What's he got going on? I don't love the plasma rifle profile. I'll be honest. I've used it before. I don't know. There's something about the plasma rifle I don't love. I think that it's just a short range gun. Like, it's good. Don't get me wrong. It causes a huge amount of damage. It has a blast. But I'm just not as I think that the Spitfire is probably just always going to be better. And the Spitfire comes with they both got 10 bots. 10 bots.
Yeah, he's got 10 bots in every profile he has, which is nice.
So you're looking at and the X Visor is cool too because it means that he can actually brawl outside his standard ranges. His plasma rifle and his Spitfire can shoot to 32 and stay at minus 0, right? They go to 0 at those ranges. So he's not penalized for shooting outside there.
Yeah, that is really nice, actually.
Him not being BS14 is my biggest disappointment.
Yeah, it's that same weird, like, I don't know why Achilles is 15 and this guy's 14 or 13, I guess, because that's the story.
Because he loses like a loser.
That's right.
What a loser.
What a loser.
Go get dragged around the walls, scrub.
Trojan. That's right. Yeah, you damn Trojan.
I think the main draw for Hector is that you get 2 lieutenant orders.
Yeah.
Plus his normal order for 3 orders. And he's got Strategos level 1, so anyone can use those orders, not just NCOs.
Yeah, he's a weirdly crossover support piece, so his 65-point price tag doesn't sting as much because he can feed his orders to the rest of the group. He's a bit like a really expensive Cornac, right? Cornac's the same thing, but he's only 45 points, but he's just not nearly as tough as this guy. This guy's immune to shock and 2 wounds and BTS 6 armor 5. Like, this guy's an absolute pig when it comes to fighting.
And of course,
and he's no handicap too. Sorry, too. He's basically 3 wins because he also has no handicap.
Yeah, and then for whatever reason, he's also CC24 with martial arts level 4.
Because he's a Trojan, man. He's the Trojan version of Achilles. Like he's a less dodgy, fighty, long blonde, hairy Achilles. He's Achilles with a beard. So then we got the Shona as a gunfighter because she's a fighter too, but she can definitely brawl up close. That +1 burst nanopulsar, submachine gun. I've killed tags with submachine guns before. If you can see it behind them, I mean, not Maggie because that's stupid 360 visor, but if you can get behind a tag and you can't get close enough to go fight it, or you don't want to, and you don't have the orders, that AP on a submachine gun can knock down some heavy armor. And she's not great BS. She's only BS 11. She's respectable. She's more of a crossover, I think, midfielder than anything else, but she can still gunfight a little bit.
So I think that brings us to Parvati.
Yes.
Who
just that job, but better.
So Parvati is like an all-comer in that she's support. She's like super support, but then she's also gunfighter.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's got that submachine gun +1 blast, and she's a wild card, and so you can take her, and so she can get 5 dice on a submachine gun,
mm-hmm.
which is scary.
Yeah, a 5-dice SMG is no joke. It's basically an AP assault pistol that's damage 13 and is 0 at up to 16 inches. So she can brawl pretty hard with guns. I've killed quite a few things with her. And BS12 is not great, but it's not nothing. You don't typically want to be in a fight with her, but she has enough. She has enough resilience. Usually, she can get away with it if she has to in a pinch, which is
she's
cool.
got the 2 wounds. She feels like heavy infantry, but she's not hackable.
Yep, she's light infantry. Can't hack her. She's a post-human, right? She's supposed to be one of the Westworld people.
Yeah, and then she's an engineer and a doctor. And the engineer is +3, so she's like 18.
18s, and then doctor 2 wounds. So she actually puts guys back together with 2 wounds, which is crazy. She's so healy, it's nuts.
Yeah, so then you're looking at stuff like the Brahms or the
or Bixie.
What else?
Nyokas, Cyclops, Nyokas, Bronzes, and Bixie I all had in there too. Because the Cyclops are actually quite decent fighters. Min -3, BS 13, multi-marksman rifles, right? Those are great brawler guns with MSV1 or biometric visors and Discover +3. They're really good hunting pieces for going.
I really like the Cyclops, and they're all specialist operatives.
Yep, even if they're not hackers or killer hackers. Yeah, they've got a lot. Like the multi-marksman rifle is probably my favorite profile, the MSV1.
Yeah, me too.
It's got for 25 points. It's not quite an epsilon, but it's very, very cool at like midfielding, and it's relatively cheap. But even the 19-point combi rifle nanopulsar +1 burst is cool. Like it's just a mimetism piece that can go out and fight. And you only get 2 of them, you know what I mean? So you're not taking a whole bunch, but they're cool little like midfielder. Or there's one you can wildcard them, I think. So you can throw them into any of your fire teams. That's a interesting like little thing, being able to just throw them MSV1 into like any of these fire teams that are like a hair or something like that. And then, of course, we talked about the bronze, but the Nyokas and bronze we kind of talked about at the beginning. Yeah, there's not a lot of long range. You're looking at a midfield or mid-range brawler for the Cyclops. The Nyokas,
I feel
they
like
have
the
the long range
Cyclops
guns.
could be a
Sorry.
good friend with the Varangian Guard.
Yes, actually, that's not a bad idea because you can shoot through
run
smoke.
A cheaply little duo who just runs up, smokes, and then shoots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hitting on 10s against basically whatever 13s if you're at nice point blank or in optimal range bands, and you're using whatever ammo type you need to remove somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the multi-marksman rifle is handy for that.
And they might be as bad as -12 to shoot you back.
Yeah,
because cover mimetism smoke.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be having to dodge or run away.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could take them as your second duo, like you do, like because you only get 2 Varangians, right? So you stick one with Shona, and you have the other one hang out with a Psycop with the MSV multi-marksman rifle. That's a cool little double duo.
And they can just suppress if things get dicey, and then suppression cover mimetism. Like that's an annoying thing to get rid of. And if he dies, he dies.
He's like 20 points or whatever if he's a combo rifle. He's a bit more if he's got the other one.
But you want to do the MSV, so you're looking at the 25.
Yeah, 25 points. But I mean, 25 points is still relatively cheap, especially if you're sticking with a Varangian is what, 12? It's like a little 30-point fire team. Yeah, definitely. The bronze is a giant murder pig, which we already talked about. He's got the heavy shotgun, multi-rifle Red Fury. So you're looking at brawler ranges too, but you can weirdly take a paramedic one, which I think is funny. Dr. Shotgun. He's got an acrolat cannon and a heavy shotgun. The world needs more Dr. Shotguns, but his immunity total is bonkers. I don't know. I think you'd probably take the Red Fury. It's basically just a shock Spitfire because it's +1 damage. And then you can shoot every direction. Or if you want to be more versatile, I suppose you could take the multi-rifle. But all of them are looking at like capped out. They're either short range fighters, hunters, or they're going to be like the sticking a fire team, or they're going to be a medium range brawler.
I like the Dr. Shotgun because
I think he'd pair well actually with the United Santiago. Right, you have him paramedic to Santiago and being a fire time to keep, like, basically just be like giving him shoulder rubs and being like, just stay calm, buddy. Just stay calm. You can still use cover. You're fine. Don't worry. Just don't freak out. Just don't freak out. Everything's fine. Sun's going down. Sun's getting real low. And you could just be like a killer hacker. Or you could have him hold the Spitfire, and he could be the close range piece to the Spitfire on the other guy, right? And they just keep each other going. It's not a bad little duo, and you can get unlimited duos. Like, I feel like maybe the missing piece is you take that cheap core team and then you just like blitz duos and have this like crazy order efficiency. Because we just talked about like 4 or 5 duos that are all relatively inexpensive. And you're talking about every time you move something, you move 2 guys and like you get to feed off their attack aware and stuff too. Because then you're basically playing O12 with, I mean, less unit options, obviously, but like with a bunch of like built-in order efficiency. And you're not trying to lean into that Harris thing.
Yeah, I always find the Harris, I just get killed, or it just doesn't do enough, and then I'm never in a good enough defensive position where they just kind of die on the next turn.
And then the last one's Bixie, because she's in every army right now, because she's the cool piece that we'll be handing out at the ITS. If somebody wins, there's a limited edition one, and she's got it all, man.
Yeah,
like,
but is someone not going to win?
Someone's not gonna win. I don't know. Everyone's winning just by showing up.
Everyone lost. Thanks for coming, losers.
Right. Everyone double lost. It's just nothing but ties the whole day. That's the plan for the weekend.
She has everything.
She does. She literally has everything. MSV 1, martial arts 3, courage, dodge +6, so she dodges on 18s, dodge +2 inches. She's the queen of that active turn dodging. And she's immunity shock, forward observer, stealth, NCO, super jump, climbing plus, multi-rifle zapper, flash pulse, EM close combat. She does everything. I mean, up to mid-range.
Moves, dodges instead of moves.
Yeah.
Unless she's climbing.
Yeah.
Wait,
always.
Can you still climb when you're dodging? Yeah.
You can, because climb turns into a normal move. So yes, you can climb dodge. You can climb up and then dodge your second half of the skill on 18s and then end up on a rooftop with not generating any arrows.
And you move 10 inches instead of 8.
Well, you get your silhouette height, basically. Yeah, you're right.
No, I mean your dodge is +2 inches, and so it moves, instead of
moving
that's 6'2",
true.
you move 6'4".
That's true. Actually, you become 6'4" when you dodge. Yeah, she would just always dodge. Absolutely. Yep, because she's dodge +6.
It's worth the risk.
She's bananas.
And she's
Yeah.
a fort observer, and she's stealth, and she's NCO, and super
Mhm.
jump. Who needs climbing plus when you can super jump?
Well, who needs mimetism when you're dodging on 18s, right? And you're just trying to get in either melee with your EM close combat, which is amazing. Or you're trying to get in a zapper range because zappers are also amazing. And she wildcards everybody, right? She goes into any fire team in this list, so she can hang out and party with. Oh no, sorry, she doesn't. I'm thinking of Tiangu. She's just in the beta trooper one. Then have her hang out with Dr. Robot. she's your best friend. It's her, Hector, and Dr. Robot going on adventures.
Why does the doctor always have a shotgun?
I know, because sometimes he has a fire axe. Sometimes he's Dr. Fire Axe. This guy's Dr. Chappie. He's different.
Dr. Shotgun stuff.
So you have a pretty long list of gunfighters, but you also surprise, which is not uncommon. That's where you kind of have that O12 or that Pano kind of feel to you, like where they all have decent BS. Nobody goes super high, but they all have like every range band covered, right? You can long range with your Nyokas and your not your bronze, but your kappas, not kappas, epsilon, sorry, is one thing. I'm sniper rifles, HMGs.
Yeah.
You got the Zeta as well in there for some long range. Everybody else is basically short to medium.
And the Epsilon is like Nauf level when he's in a fire group because he's get 3 shots.
Yeah. Well, Nauf gets 4 shots in a fire team because you can take
Nauf doesn't go in a fire team.
Sure does in
My
Starco,
faction,
not in your faction.
He doesn't exist in other factions.
He does. He has
Not
a
to me.
faction. He has a really good faction that he can meet a fire team in. So then it's midfielders. Let's talk about your midfielders because you actually have a surprising number of them for being this tech advanced. And obviously the first one is the Varangian. That guy's he's so good for 12 points. The Varangian's amazing. I'm very, 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 very like into the Varangian.
Yeah.
CC23, Berserk +3, Courage, Dogged, Religious, Impetuous. So 12 to 16 points. All short range guns, so like smoke grenades, chain rifles, boarding shotguns, chain cold +1 burst, and SMGs are like your weapons. But then your close combat weapons are either AP close combat weapons or a trench hammer. And I love the trench hammer because you can throw it. You can throw the trench hammer at APDA Fizz 14 if you need to. Just hum a trench hammer at people.
I have a related but arbitrary kind of thing.
Sure.
Why is the Zetas guided -8?
I don't know.
He's the only thing in the game that doesn't do multiples of 3. And also is the only tag with -8. I've been looking it up during this. Everyone else is -6. And I don't know why. And
It's because I'm a Gundam.
Could be a typo, or it could be that he's just -8 and that they didn't want to give him -9 for some reason. I don't know.
Because like
man.
guided is +6. So it's actually worse to shoot. Like it's so strange to me. Anyway, and it bothers me you can only take 1. That was all.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks for contributing to our midfielder discussion.
I
But
also wish I
Varangians-
could take 2.
Yeah, Varangians are great. They could duo with either Shona or all of the wild cards. So the Psychop, Nyoka, Shona, Parvati, and the Bronze. A Tiangu. Oh, we didn't talk about the Tiangu, but he's kind of a midfield piece as well. So let's talk about him now.
I feel like you need to take him.
Well, he
I
does a
think
lot of
he's-
good stuff. He's got
I think
FTO
he's, like,
options, but he's
almost like a
also got
must-take. Yeah.
the Mind Layer one, especially. There's only one. You only get a single one of these guys. But talk about the 2 types.
Wait, I need to bring him back up here. Wait, 2 types. Oh yeah, you get the hollow projector guy.
Or the FTO
Or-
guys. There's a linkable
or the
guy, or
FTO
there's
guys.
the 3 model shell game guys. Yeah,
Oh, the FTO guy is the only one that can link.
that's right.
But that's
yeah, fire team operative.
So I mean, you can take him as a killer hacker, and then pretend that he's something else, and then surprise killer hacker people.
Well, his base stats are decent, right? He's CC16, BS12, Fizz 10, 14 whip, which makes the
Yeah.
hacker prevalent. But he's armed 2 and BTS3, so he's not nothing. He's got a hollow mask, so he's always going to show up as somebody else on the table to start off with, and then he's a 360 visor too, so you can never backshot him. And he's got 0G, which means he probably has super jump or extra movement in this ITS.
Mhm. And you can bring him with a Red Fury combi rifle or shotgun. I like the Mad Traps one.
I like the mat traps and jammers. Jammers are cool too. As the two of the profiles that
that's
are
true,
FCOs
the
have
jammer- no.
jammers.
I think the jammer is probably the best. Maybe the boarding shotgun jammer. Just
Boarding
'cause-
shotgun grenades jammer as like just
'cause
a
he's
surprise piece in a
Because he's
fire
only
team.
23 points. You can pretend he's like a bronze or something, and so they're like, I don't know, bringing something up like to deal with the bronze, and then you're just like jammer.
Yeah.
You know, I think you have Cho pretend to be him with a jammer, and him pretend to be Cho.
Yes.
And then
Absolutely.
people who are like, I'm going to go knock out the chain of command. And it's like, joke's on you, I'm a jammer. Or
That's
it's
right.
like, I'm going to go
But-
up on that. Oh, but if
why
it's
would
actually
anyone
the jammer,
ever actually show Cho?
because you could play this shell game.
That's just because Owen's playing mind games with people, where you just have two Chos on the table, and one of them happens to be a shotgun jammer, and you don't know which is which.
You just switch them.
These are the
Tian
games.
Gao is actually Cho, and Cho is
Cho's
actually Tian
Tian
Gao.
Gao. Yeah, it's the mind games. So
People aren't going to think about that. You could have done that to me, and I would have had no idea. I'd have just been like, yep, Dan's being stupid again.
That's true.
And then
I am
it's like,
often
all right,
stupid.
my guy jumps in to get you, and you're like, I jammer as soon as you get within 8. Oh,
Yeah.
On a 14. Oh,
and
I
you
have to
can't
run
sneak
away
up
now.
on him either because he's got a 360 visor. So you literally can't walk behind him and not eat a shotgun. He'll shotgun you from any direction all the time, or throw a grenade, or jam you through a wall as you like try and arrive there too.
Yep,
You're like,
it's,
here's Dr. Shotgun looking at this wall. You're like, I'm
Mhm.
behind you. And you're like, shotgun. You're like, what?
or he's
I wouldn't
sleeping
even
on a
d-
wall,
and I wouldn't
Van
even
Zandt
turn to
walks
face.
in off the board, and you're like, jammer.
Yeah, and I would keep my back to the like point of entry too, just to screw with
Yeah.
people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You have him keep his back to everything, so people sneak up on him, and he's just like, "Joke's on you! I'm gonna throw a grenade." Yeah, you always have him like obviously facing away from everybody to make them try and sneak up on him.
And then I feel like Cho is also not a must take, but a pretty important piece to take in Starmada.
When we get to support pieces, yeah, I think she
Yeah.
is a pretty key piece. Cyber Ghosts. Let's talk about them because they're another of your midfield pieces.
Oh, that's true. Cyber Ghosts are wonderful. They have a pitcher, which just opens up so many options for hacking, either killer hacking or grabbing someone's tag that they think is safe behind a wall. Is just in there because they're good to throw up the 14. He's whip 14. It's a technical weapon, right? So you use your 14 or use your fizz to throw.
To throw a pitcher, you shoot it with your BS. BS.
Oh, okay.
A pitcher is a grenade launcher that fires repeaters.
That's right. Okay. So
Yeah,
he's only
and-
BS 11, so it's not great, but you get +3 on up to 16. So
I think the key there is that he's firing out pitchers which don't generate AROs, right? It's not like walking a copper bot up there where it will generate an ARO. The pitcher doesn't when it lands, so you're just able to put that stuff out. And he's got a hacking device plus, which means he can also white noise, and that can be huge when you're facing Pano or you're facing Yu Ching, who bring lots of visors because it's basically smoke for visors, right?
yeah, and he can go impersonation too.
He can
Would be-
cyber mask, yeah,
Yeah, cybermask
with the
so-
device plus.
So and with the killer hacker profile, he's got the killer
With the killer
hacker
hacker too,
and
yeah.
hacker. So it's kind of like he can be that like late game kind of walk up and push buttons, and on the way he's relatively safe.
Yeah, so he's a crossover piece, but you only get one. He's ABA 1. BTS 6 too means he's actually quite a good killer hacker because he's got a lot of defense. So he fires the pitcher, then he killer hacks you. So he's effectively BTS 9 because he gets the firewall cover, right? When someone's hacking
And
him
whip
back.
14. So
Yeah, so he's a whip 14 with Trinity through his own pitcher, and he'll basically be like BTS 9 saving back if they try Trinity him back. So
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got he has a lot of assassination potential basically.
if someone's
he
a
can land a pitcher
hacker,
where he wants to be.
you're very afraid of the cyber ghost.
For 18 points too, which is not a huge investment. The Cyber Ghost is a really good hacker hunter for even big hackers like Mary Problems. I probably wouldn't try and take on like an Interventor with him with their BTS of 9. He doesn't love that, but active turn he could probably hunt down a Jazz or a Mary Problems or something like that. Not have too hard of a time. Mary Problems was like a built-in -3, but he probably won't die back immediately. And for the point cost, he's actually kind of like a peace trader hacker almost. He's looking to try and attack something bigger than he is.
Yeah, all the hackers seem to be good points for value.
Mm-hmm. Especially if they
in
can
12 in Starmada.
Yeah, and I would say his pitcher qualifying him as a midfielder, right? Because he's throwing those pitchers up in the first turn, hopefully into the midfield, and Even reloading off of your copper, your fuzzbots potentially to keep firing them and littering the table with them to jam up the midfield for people advancing. Well, let's talk about Andromeda. Have you gotten to use Andromeda yet?
I have not.
She used to be amazing. She's still pretty great. Her big base kind of holds her back, but Andromeda is a piece I've been using recently. 4/4 move, CC 21, BS 12, Fizz 12, Whip 13, Arm 2, BTS 3, 1 wound, size 4, AVA 1.
She is the only infiltration piece for Starmada.
Yeah, and she's infiltrate +3, which means she can actually flat Fizz infiltrate into the opponent's half of the table, which is pretty cool. Her big thing is guard. She's martial arts 3, +1 damage CC with guard. So she's effectively going to be Fizz 15 damage when she's attacking. And guard means she can make CC attacks and cast as being in base to base reciprocally with the opponent when she's in zone of control and line of sight. So if you've got like a suppressing in cover mim -6 dude, you can CC him instead of shooting him. And he loses his cover and he loses his mimetism because you're now fighting in close combat. You'll still suffer the the mod from suppression, but that just puts you at CC 21, and all of a sudden you're fighting in melee basically against that dude. So she's really cool at sort of like digging stuff out that's in mimetism, and getting rid of those like cover mods and stuff too. So she can attack stuff that's like on rooftops or on ledges and stuff if she can see them and she's in zone of control.
She's a really good holdback piece, and then she has stealth as well, immunity shock, no wounding cap, dodge +2, and so she can do a lot of fun things. Especially the dodge +2 is like you can get around the corner and then go guard somebody.
Yeah, and Zapper means she's got an EM template, which is pretty great. A Zapper is basically a chain colt EM.
Oh,
so it's a small template EM.
Oh yeah, it is now.
Oh yeah. You're thinking of the not nanopulsar, the one
big
that's just
nanopulsar.
BTS. Yeah, no, the big nanopulsar is the, oh god, I've forgotten the name of it already. But yes, that's not the Zapper. The Zapper is the small EM template, the small Emarat.
Oh, and she does have a DA close combat weapon too. So
sure does, yeah.
That's nice.
And a breaker pistol. So she's got lots of short range guns with the SMG, the breaker pistol. The Zapper's cool, and she still has a flash pulse, which is mostly a defensive thing, because she whipped 13. So if someone gets her at like a range she's not happy with, she flash pulses them instead. And decharges are handy because she can do some classifies with them as well. Pulsar is what you're thinking of. That's right. Yeah, it's just that's just a big nanopulsar.
I guess with the infiltration, with the you can just put her in there and just go boom, I'll blow up whatever thing, and then
if you're going first, if you're going first, she could be a really cool early piece trade to go hunt something down that you want to have be dead. But she's still a specialist operative too, so she can just go push all the buttons if you want as well.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see
stealth. Yeah, she's got a lot going on for her 32 points, and I'd probably take the 32 point SMG one because you trade a boarding shotgun, you give away your Zapper, which I would not want. I'd still want to have my EM template if I could. I don't think it's worth the 4 points to take the boarding shotgun.
EM is just so scary for all the remotes, heavy infantry, and tags.
Yes, and tags don't like dodging templates. So you can, if a tag rolls up on you within 8 inches, just throw that thing on her instead of trying to guard. I mean, you can guard, but I'd rather just try and hit it with the EM template because you're gonna be terrifying the tag because getting out of it's almost impossible because the mod stack now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Casanova. You just painted that guy.
Yeah,
he's a bit of a weird profile, but he's neat but weird.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out what I actually want to do with him. The 4 deployment +8's nice because he's got either EM mines or shock mines, and I don't know what the better option is because they both. I mean, shock mine could just kill somebody, but the EM mines can lock down somebody.
I'd always take the EM mines. I'd always take the EM mines. I just take the EM mines. Yeah. I think EM mines are where it's at because, like, even if you don't like, because you don't have mine layer, I don't think. Oh, you do have mine layer actually. Never mind. Yeah, you can mine lay them. Even if you don't end up killing anything with them, you just made a part of the board inaccessible to tags and stuff like that, right? Like it's not nothing just to say, hey, next to this objective, your tag does not walk. It does not come over here until somebody goes and clears this.
That's true. And then I guess we have a few other mine layers as well. We can get the Raven Eyes after this.
Yes, we'll get the Raven Eye. Amazing.
So Casanova, he's got the dodge +3, but he's only Fizz 11. But Fizz 14 on the dodge is not terrible.
70% chance.
Cap, Mimetism -6.
Specialist. He's like
Specialist.
Andromeda on size 2. So he's like an easier to hide Andromeda a little bit for roughly the same points.
Yeah, he can still die pretty easily-ish. But I guess not terribly, because he can't. I guess he's got a submachine gun to shoot back at you, but he doesn't have anything like long. If he ever gets caught at a long range, he doesn't
Doesn't have
it,
that flash
so-
pulse. Yeah, doesn't have that flash pulse to try and save himself with. What he does have though is he has a monofilamental close combat weapon at -3. So it means that martial arts you're -6 to fight back against him, which is a big deal because your CC, your martial arts 2, which means you're +3, -3, and then your additional -3 for that monofilamental. So if you go and fight a tag, it's -6 CC and you're +3 CC. So you're on 25s, and that tag's on like probably 10s, 11s, maybe. It depends on what the CC of it is. They're usually like 17 to 18. So a -6 CC is a big deal when you're adding 5 to your roll, and he's got a 50% failure rate, which means you're almost always hitting with that monofilament. So you don't really care what your fizz is when you're hitting with monofilamental.
I guess the problem is getting him there.
Well, that's where that +3 dodge gets in the forward deployment, right? Like, and
Yeah.
or and here's the thing: you lay the mine around a corner and then you run around the corner. That's the other option with him, right? Is you force the dodge and then you just second move into CC.
That's true.
So if you want to go hunt the tag with him,
tags or anything, yeah,
you
that's
you
true.
lay the mine around the corner and then you just rip around the corner, and he's got to choose.
And even if you if you use mine layer, you still have 2 more mines to use. So
yeah, precisely.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
He's got uses, but I think he requires more setup than Andromeda, and he's slightly less versatile, right? He's a specific kind of hunting piece at close range. That has some midfield jamming and stuff too.
You gotta be really careful with him that he doesn't get picked off.
Yeah, I mean that's true of Andromeda too. I think that the nice thing about his is at least he can hide. He's not on a 55 mil template.
That's true.
Let's talk about crushers. Have you tried these guys out yet?
A little bit. I tried the drop troop one, and he comes in from behind, and then he's got boarding shotgun, but he's got a Panzerfaust. But it's kind of like if you get someone in the back, Panzerfaust is good. Otherwise, it's kind of like really risky to roll that one die. But it's nice that they're all button pushers. They're all forward observers. They all have no wounding cap, and mimetism -3. And they're also like one of the only forward deployments that you get besides the Andromeda and Casanova. And so it's kind of like this is all you kind of get. They just seem a little bit expensive. Like you're paying for the EMCC weapon, but they don't have any CC skills in their CC17. So
yeah,
it's
the one thing I think that would make them more interesting, and it's weird, they're the only forward observers I've seen lately that don't have a flash pulse. If they had a flash pulse,
they'd be much better.
That's what I mean. Like they should, if they just had a flash pulse, I think they would do that midfield jamming role way better because they would have something like I think relevant to contribute to the ARO presence. Whereas just having nanopulsers, which I think is what's replacing in their equipment cost here, the flash pulse, it's not as good. It's just not as it doesn't keep them alive. But a flash pulse with their mimetism and cover would I think give them that like ability to be like these cool defendy pieces. And I would take the 29.1. I'd take if it had a flash pulse, the SMG nanopulsar, and then just suppress it, right? Because this SMG doesn't care about range bands all of a sudden when you're on suppression. You just litter the midfield with 3 of these guys. But I think you're right. I think as the profile stands, it's kind of like for less points you get Andromeda, right? Or less points you get Casanova, and I'd rather have those two with Mind Layer and Guard and all the like toys that they bring than these guys.
Definitely, because it's like their EMCC weapon sounds amazing until you look at their CC and you're like, it's just a crazy dice roll to try to go at the close combat.
yeah, it's a last resort. Like they're super dangerous if they land, but they're not that great. And the no wounding cap's cool and the shock commune's cool, but I think the problem is that in category, they're kind of like priced out by like the Tiangu and the character models that are also in this list. And that leads me to the last one I kind of had in this list. Oh, last two actually, because we'll end with the Raven Eye, is the Raptors with the Diva bots and all their other gear.
The Raptors are cool. I really like Raptors. They have NCO.
Yep.
And so that gives a lot more flexibility to who you can bring as lieutenant if you bring these guys.
And they all have NCO too, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like baked in.
They all have NCO. You can bring them as a Fort Observer, Killer Hacker, and they always get the Diva Bot. The Killer Hacker is cool because you can make them both do the impersonation, the cyber
Mhm.
mask, and so then you have two little smiley faces. Now, how does it work if one's revealed?
Then just that one's revealed. The state's canceled. It'd be the same as having your mind get revealed. You know what I mean? Just because you're synced doesn't mean that one gets revealed and one doesn't. It's the same with antipodes, right? Antipodes, one can be revealed and one isn't.
Oh,
They still activate normally. It's just the state on that particular model's canceled.
So I think that's pretty strong. I mean, it's kind of order intensive to like put them into that, but it's like, I don't know, at the end of an order, like you can go in, do some killy stuff, and then go cyber mask, and it's just.
Well, I think the NCO saves you from that, right? Because you have a sleepy lieutenant, then you use your NCO to cybermask them, and then you've got the Diva Bot and the Raptor walking forward with their sweet 2 wound, and they both have the same level of mimetism. Not that you won't know who's who just by remembering it, but you've got a light flamethrower and a heavy flamethrower coming out of cover and a Spitfire potentially too.
Yeah, they're the BS14. They're move 6-2 or 6-4 on the Diva Bot, and so it's really cool to like you can pop both of them around the corner at the same time, and then good luck choosing what you want to do.
Well, that's it. That's the whole point. They're like a baked in fiddler, right? Where you can choose, one can shoot, one can flamethrow, and then you have to be like, well, which will it be?
And the multiplexers are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can get that AP shot. You can take out those higher armor targets that are hiding in cover.
And the same with the boarding shotgun. Boarding shotgun's baked in AP, right? So it's plus one damage. So it's almost like a heavy shotgun and a Panzerfaust too on that guy. I think that one's the one I'd take. The boarding shotgun plus 1 damage Panzerfaust. He's cool because he multi-range bands. Even though the Panzerfaust eventually empties, right? He's a bit cheaper than everybody else. I like both those profiles. Well, that's the sort of like heavy one, but the premier greatest thing that you have access to in this whole list, I think personally, is you can take 2 Raven Eye officers, and they're absolutely amazing. So tell me about those guys.
So Raven Eyes are like you just take 2 every lit. You start with 2. I feel because first of all they have Mind Layer, and they
first of all they're 12 points. Like they're 12 so
points.
cheap.
They're like the cheap option. There's not really a lot of like lower than 12-point options in 012 or Starmada. So those are like your cheap little guys.
Or the game.
Yeah. Owen always brings all these like this guy's 7 points, this guy's 8 points, this guy's, and there's 5 of them.
That's the faction he's playing though, right? When you're playing Hawk Islam or you're playing Ariadna, you just that's your faction benefit is you have cheap bros.
Or combined army.
Yeah. Yeah, but combined army doesn't get a cheap guy like this. You know what I mean? That you get cheap war bands. You don't get cheap like this guy does. This guy's like a Ghazi. You know what I mean? Like this guy does a bunch of jobs. He's like an old Ghazi even. Like he does a bunch of jobs for 12 points.
Yes.
So he's got EM mines, which we've talked about before, which are great. If you combine it with Casanova and 2 Raven Eyes, you can have 3 EM mines starting on the board, and then a potential 6 more EM mines that can be laid during the game. And so it just makes things really scary for the heavy infantry that could mess you up, or any other kind of
model
repeaters, anything. Because even if you're not heavy infantry, it can still isolate you, which makes things really annoying. So besides that, they also have Emirats, which are the large template EM ammo, which is awesome. So they're just like they're like defensive mostly, but they also have forward observers, so they can also press mines, and you can like run them up. Again, they don't get any kind of forward deployment or anything, but they're not bad to like run up, lay a mine around the corner, pop around with their submachine guns. Or
suppress or flash pulse. They all have flash pulses too with Whip 13.
Oh, I didn't even realize they have flash pulses.
Yeah. See, this is the FOs usually have flash pulses. These guys do.
Yeah. And so it's just they're kind of like just an all-around awesome defensive unit for 12 points that are like way undercosted.
And they can be your lieutenant if you want to.
Yeah.
For 12 points. Just a cheap lieutenant. And that way you could have your NCO use a lieutenant order and then have Cho sleep somewhere too.
And they have the option for cyber mines. that only affects hackers, but I don't think you ever would take that.
Not just take EM, because EM also
Right.
affects hackers and turns off their device if they get isolated, right?
Yeah, and it's the same as Lieutenant's profile, and so when they're in EM mines, because the opponent can ask that, right? Of like what profile he's brought.
What do you mean?
Like, so if you're deploying a Raven Eye and then you put a mine out next to him, they can ask.
It would be a camo marker. So you would just say it's a camo minus 3 marker. You don't say it's a mine.
Right,
but you say, how many mines do you have?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, they're gonna know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're not. Well,
No,
they're
the
gonna know
question
it's a
is
mine,
it a
but whether
cyber
it's
mine or is it
a
an EM mine?
Oh, you're open information because
Yeah.
you have EM mines, so you'll know which
Right.
one it is. Yeah, he'll know that
Right.
there's a camo marker there, and that guy's equipped with EM mine, so he'll definitely know it's an EM mine. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So this is where you always take EM mines because it could be a lieutenant, it could not.
Yeah, you double down.
You don't really know.
For sure.
So he's a good like sleeper on a roof guy because nobody wants to jump into an EM or a EMRAT and an EM mine. Because
you have
if you have
so much that can use NCO. You have so many NCO options. Like the Zeta can do it, the Raptors can do it.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So just 2, but hey, they're available.
Are you sure? There's no more than 2? Oh, I thought there was. I got
like
one. Yeah, than that.
That they can be in your security link.
Yes, and they can be in your security link. We talked about that at the very
Oh.
beginning. Is they can also be part of your security link.
So you'd have EMRAT Blast +1.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and both Raven Eyes can be part of that link team. So you could just go. And when we talk about the support stuff, right? We're talking about the Bluecoat and stuff too. Like you could be like Raven Eye, Bluecoat, Kappa, Cho, and that's it. So one Kappa makes that a link team, and then everybody else is just sleeping.
You don't even need to bring the cap. You probably want to.
Bixie has NCO. I knew there was somebody else.
Bixie. That's the one. We just talked about her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's plenty of NCO options. I'll give it to you.
But the 2 Raven Eyes are almost like mandatory at this point. I think everybody's just taking them as their first 2 models in the list. But it's like 2 Raven Eye, Cho, Bluecoat, Kappa, Paramedic, maybe. And that kind of leads us into support. Talking about the support pieces, let's talk about the venerable Kappa, the Fusilier of 012. What's a Kappa do? Kind of just everything good except they're not garbage whip like a Fusilier is.
It's true. Whip 13 is fantastic, which brings me to my most popular profile with them, which is the hacker. Because for 12 points and 0.5 SWIC, you get a hacker.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, one of the cheaper hackers in the game, if not the cheapest.
It's Whip 13, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll have 6 cents in a fire team as well.
Right. And you can bring like 3 of them and just as like your sleepers. Because one thing I find is, especially in Starmada, you don't really use all your SWIC. You can, but typically you have an extra like 1.5 to 2 SWIC left over when you're taking all the other stuff. And so whenever you take a Kappa, I always seem to take him as a hacker. They get the submachine gun, and so you can have suppression options. Obviously, not so much if you're in the link, but I guess if you're in the link, then maybe you take either the missile launcher, or heavy machine gun, or sniper rifle, because then you go up to BS15, and you get the +1 burst. Or
you take the FO because the FO is a deployable repeater.
I guess he just drops it at his feet, right?
Sure. Or walks around a corner and drops it, like just extends the range of your cyber ghosts and stuff like that, or makes your home base have a hacker. So if like a heavy infantry drop tube comes in or a tag comes too close. Remember, this is like a sleeper fire team. They could be spread out across like 5 rooftops, right? All on different rooftops. They don't have to all be together. I think that's a common mistake people make with fire teams is they think they all have to be standing in like a cloud. But as long as the central guy is never going to do anything or change, and this is just like a sleepy fire team, having that deployable repeater on one of the wings, basically, as long as they're close enough that they're still within 8 of each other, you can have that hacker net spread out.
Now, deployable repeaters, what kind of action is it to put that out?
I believe it's deploy repeater or deployable. Place deployable. I think it might be
a short skill. Like, can you do it in ARO out of line of sight?
Let's look. You can't do it at line of sight, no, because you
Okay.
need your options for things at line of sight are, I think, dodge or idle. Place deployable, Infinity Wiki. No roll, short skill ARO, have a weapon or piece of equipment within a deployable label, and reactive turn, line of fire of the active trooper is required. So you have to be able to see the active trooper in order to drop it.
Yeah. So you
Allows the
put
user
that
to place
beforehand.
token. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of good options here, but again, I love the hacker.
The hacker's great. And they're cheap. Again, they're like 12 points for BS12, which is a nice line infantry thing to have.
Yeah, it's kind of like you bring the Cyber Ghost as like, and then as like your killer hacker or whatever, and then when he throws the deployables, then the other hackers also get a chance to do all the other stuff.
Or using to do arrow spotlights, right? Multi-arrow spotlights on people. So if you want your killer hackers hiding in Cyber Mask, then this guy could be the one that's throwing out those spotlights when people are walking by your repeater net.
I mean, and if you have like 3 hackers, then it's like, oh, you get 3 chances of spotlight. Or if, God forbid, anything else comes in, which no one would be stupid enough to do because it's too terrifying that 3 guys get a chance to hack you.
Yeah, this support fire team as a core is pretty much the like most telegraphed, I think, in the game. Like it just says like you take this, you take Cho, you take 2 Raven Eyes, you take a Bluecoat, and you take a Kappa to make it a fire team. It really is a very like telegraphed fire team. What about the Lambda? Have you used the Lambda?
I haven't. I did pick up some. I haven't used them yet. They're nice because they're either they're the Whip 14. That's either the Doctor Engineer that can take the U-bots.
Yeah,
And
these are
so,
your support models.
And they seem a little bit. I don't know. I guess they're only 16 points, but I guess you can't take Monstructors in Starmada.
No, which is your cheaper engineer choice in O12.
Yeah. And so I find myself taking Parvati most of the time because it's just a lot more diverse role.
And she can fire team. There's no fire team options for the Lambdas at all.
Yeah, she can fire team or she can take a couple of U-bots, and then it's kind of like she can sleep in the back, but then also can do some fighting later in the game, or she can get around, so you can super jump. So it's like if your silly tag up on a roof gets shot down because I'm climbing plussing everywhere, then she can actually get there to bring it back up.
Well, and you also have like a beta troop doctor option, right? Like the engineer would be the only one you consider taking, probably just to put back together your bots and your chappies, your
beta troopers,
right? There's not a lot of point in having the Lambda doctor because the beta trooper doctor does the same thing pretty much, whereas the engineer can actually fix those robots.
Yeah, and I gotta remember you can use gizmo kits to like shoot at stuff.
Sure can. And if you fire team, you can shoot 2 of them, right? Because you can double tap gizmo kits and med kits too. That's a really popular thing right now. Nobody takes doctors in Ariadne because Ariadne has such good fizz. They just double tap med kits into people instead. So let's talk about all your bots then. So you've got basically the exact same suite of bots as Pano. You have the Peeler, the Millicent, the Kita, and then what's the last one? Peter, Millicent,
Fuzzbot,
and the Oko. We already talked about it. Well, the Fuzzbots are a different class; they're your different size ones. But so basically, you have your total reaction HMG bot, who is the usual 25 points. He's exactly the same, but he's got Climbing Plus, which is kind of cool. So Climbing Plus is a neat add-on.
Yeah, 360 visor, Climbing Plus, total reaction. I really love it. Like it's like
you can evo it, yeah.
You evo it, and it can effectively BS14 then because everyone's always in cover at long range, and you just you can get where you need to be.
It kind of crossover hunts too. I'd say it's a crossover like long range hunter piece if you want, but that total reaction means that you never have to put it on suppression.
Yeah, I'd say I'd put him in the gunfighter, like long range gunfighter position.
Yeah, he's a crossover piece for sure, but he's only AVA 1. You only get 1 in the faction. And then the Millicent is a completely standard, nothing special about it missile bot. I think the same with the
Kiata's the exact same.
Yeah, it's just Kiata's got Mim, which they all have, Flash Pulse.
Yeah, the only difference is that his Peeler and his Oko get climbing, which the others usually don't.
Yeah, they get the Climb Plus, which is nice. So you've got that bonus on those guys. And then the same with your Okos, your Fuzzbots rather. Your Fuzzbots have the usual Evo hacker, total reaction combi rifle, and then deactivator repeater, and nothing else special. They're exactly the same as like the standard ones, which I kind of like. So you can reload your pictures on your not your Cyber Ghost, the other guy.
Or your Panzerfaust or your mines or whatever.
Ghost, that's right.
I guess that's true. You can reload mines.
You sure can.
If you wanted to get really cute and didn't care about coordinated orders all that much, you could like your double Raven Eye with Casanova, and you start with 3 out. Coordinate, everyone place one. Coordinate, everyone place one. Coordinate, everyone reload. And you're like, go away.
Owen's trying to figure out how many mines he can place in a game. Always.
And you can link the ghosts at the beginning, so you can walk them up the board, so they're not all in your deployment.
We only get one Cyber Ghost.
Or sorry, I'm saying the wrong unit. It's
the
not
Raven
the
Eye.
Cyber Ghost. It's the Raven Eye, who I need to say.
Yeah,
it's
the,
true.
The ones who
Raven
actually
Eyes,
have the mines is what I meant.
You just bring them as a duo.
Put them in your link.
You could
have them follow around 2 Kappa hackers.
No, you know what's funny?
Bluecoat Red Fury.
You could actually not do that because you only have Harrison core options for Raven Eyes. You can't duo them.
Fine.
They don't go down to duos.
We're
bringing as a core of 2. Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't take a core course minimum 3.
It is.
Yeah, there's minimum 3 for cores and Harris's.
I guess you're stuck having to put them with the other dirt cheap models in your list.
Oh, nuts.
Which leaves us to the Bluecoat. As a support piece. Bluecoat's another neat one. Again, cheap. You can have 4 of them.
So the crazy thing about Bluecoats is that they just have a wide variation of what you can bring them as. Like you can give them a Red Fury. I don't know why you would. I feel like there's other better like people to put it on, but it's a fire team.
They're all over the place. Like they're so all over the place. They're CC20 with Natural Born Warrior, which is weird. They're supposed to be like the train conductors. Like they're supposed to be these dudes who like ride around on spaceships and like keep the peace. So they have biometric visors and Discover +3. So they're whip 16 to Discover, which is cool. They have +1 damage CC with their close combat weapon and shot close combat weapons. They can go to kill or they can go to basically they have like stun batons. They can set to kill or they can set to stun. And they
have Natural Born Warrior with -6 is better than every martial arts guy who doesn't have Natural Born Warrior.
Exactly. So
he is a better fighter than every other guy out there.
Yeah, because he does no failure state. He has no failure state, and he's -6 to hit when he uses his like stun baton. So
and
he
the
just
highest
goes
CC stat in the game is 25.
Yeah. So he literally will walk over and I mean if someone berserks him, I guess he's screwed. But other than that,
but he's
just knifing and he auto hits too.
That's right.
You're trading for one, and he's also cheap.
And he's also paralyzing you.
No, he kills you. If you're gonna berserk me, I'm just gonna kill you. Yeah,
he's got a shock CC weapon. So
yeah, I turned the baton to kill mode.
Charge it up
to kill your Fizz 11 kill stack.
Yeah, went from taser to bludgeon.
That's right. But he still also has an SMG or a riot stopper, so you can also goo people, boarding shotguns, like you said, adhesive launcher, heavy riot stopper. Like his 13-point option has just nothing but sticky weapons. It's an adhesive launcher +1 burst, a heavy riot stopper, a pistol. He can't actually sidearm somebody, and then a shock CC weapon and close combat weapon. He's a strange thing, but he's a great like defensive in your zone piece. If you're playing against Shazvasti or you're playing against Combined Army or Hakaslam, where you're seeing lots of like specula killers and stuff like that, this guy's a godsend for hunting those pieces down and use them as your holdback piece, and then you just park them next to wherever the smiling faces are.
Like the heavy riot stopper is just so good. It's like that large blast that it's like, okay.
How about large blast intuitive attack? So you can just start like stickying camo markers and being like, well, I'm just gonna goo that just in case.
Now intuitive, you just roll your whip.
Yeah, you make a whip check, and then if you pass, you just hit the template, and the being touched by the template will because it has to idle, otherwise it reveals itself. You just template it anyway, right? So if you declare an intuitive attack, then if it doesn't idle, you just hit it with your template because you're shooting. And if you pass your whip check, then it's canceling the camo state anyway because you're hitting with the template, it's taking damage.
Now, if it does dodge,
it's revealed. It would just be dodging. No, it's not face to face because it's a template, right? It would just be dodging the template then.
But then you don't use the template.
Yeah.
No, but you declare.
No, because you know
intuitive
the
attack is a full order, so you have to declare
Oh,
first.
yeah.
intuitive attack is a feature of the template, right? So you're automatically using the template because it
Why
has
wouldn't
the
this
intuitive
guy
attack tag.
not just discover shoot every time?
Because it's a long skill because you can't move into it. Probably.
So is intuitive.
So it's intuitive, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You discover +3.
for sure, absolutely. Yeah.
And biometric visor.
Well, intuitive attack is discover shoot. Then you.
I guess if you're impersonation 1, then you
Well,
do
also
it.
intuitive attack doesn't have any modifiers against it. An intuitive attack is done without any like mimetism modifiers or anything like that. So you're just passing a whip check and then hitting, right? So you have a 65%.
I guess if they're Mim 3, you should discover shoot. And if they're Mim 6, then you could intuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because discover shoot is just better because then you can just go, okay, discover. Oh, you revealed they shoot you, and I pick the best weapon for the job now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Owen had the fun idea of like 4 Bluecoats and a Kappa hacker, and then you just run around with adhesive launchers at 3 burst. It's like
Oh,
popping their heads up.
in N3,
Goo.
at one point in N3, Owen and I tried to play a completely non-lethal game of Infinity where he brought nothing but adhesive launchers, and he only won the game when every single model in my army was stickied. And it was bananas. It was an insane game. We had a lot of
O12
fun
didn't
doing
exist.
it.
If O12
I know.
existed, you could do it now.
I
O12
know.
could do that job.
We should repeat that experiment where you try and do a completely non-lethal game and you just stick everybody all the time with nothing but sticky weapons. You can only take models with sticky weapons and you try and sticky weapon everybody.
I think Paracc should count too.
That's what I mean. So that's mean you're immobilizing things, right? So yes,
Yeah.
Paracc would count as well, and so would isolate and stuff like that. This is your non-lethaling people. Or EMIs or whatever.
Starmada allows you to take 4 Bluecoats instead of the normal 2 Bluecoats.
Sure can.
In O12. And so you get those extra 2 Bluecoats, which just opens up those defensive options. And when you add that with the 2 Raven Eyes, it's just kind of, you take the cheap Bluecoats, and so all of a sudden you have 6 guys in your deployment that are 12 to 13 points each that no one wants to go anywhere near.
Yeah, and they're linkable too, right? So you could have like 2 Raven Eye, one's your lieutenant, 2 Bluecoats, and a Kappa hacker, and that's like a 5-man fire team.
Mm-hmm.
And then just no show.
I think a fun one is 2 Raven Eye, 2 Kappa hackers, and then the Bluecoat with a Red Fury.
Yeah.
And you use them as a little fight team.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they die, it's under 100 points. Like and they're gonna be obnoxious the whole way down. Even if you break up their link and they're just stuck being 2 hackers and 2 Raven Eyes in the middle of the board, dropping mines and being hackers, like you're still gonna have a problem dealing with that.
I guess wouldn't you want
it's not just you could even
be
take
the heavy machine gun instead of the Red Fury?
No, I just take a Red Fury because she's looking for dice advantage at that point. You're not gonna hunt a tag like a Red Fury's.
Also,
two less damage.
The Red Fury's better closer up, and you're wanting to close the gap to get your hackers and mine layers closer.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, there's a tag. All right, Raven Eye, you're up.
Or you send the. I mean, that you're just the entire fire team you just described is 24, 37, 57, 62 plus another 13, so it's 75 points for those 5 guys.
73.
Yeah. So we have one more model to talk about, and I don't know why we'd talk about him because he's not fantastic in this faction, although you could take him. And that's Saladin. Lieutenant +1 command token. Poor Salad. He doesn't super fit in here. CC 19, BS 13, courage, immunity, shock. He has a repeater built into him, which is like a liability half the time. No wound in caps. He's just level 1. He's got a combat rifle and then a pulsar +1 burst, and he's +1 command token lieutenant. So
I guess what's nice with the amount of killer hackers you can take is that if anybody comes in to hack them, you can counter killer hack pretty good.
Well, yeah, but they could but you could just choose to hack somebody like through like your own hacking area if you're standing next to him. Like I guess, yeah, you could try and do that. I don't know. I don't see there's not for 34 points, you have so many better lieutenant options, right? Like you have your Raven Eye we just talked about.
Well, he gives you the +1 command token, which is nice.
True.
But he's 34 points is a bit, but it's like it's kind of one of those things where if you put Saladin on a rooftop and you got a bunch of hackers, who's going to kill him?
Yeah.
Like no heavy infantry or tag is going to want to be close. and so you have to try to, if there's no other angle, like jumping up on a building to see him.
But
And
you could also take Hector and just have 2 extra regular orders, like
That's true.
I
but
get that I
Hector's
get that he's twice the
fight.
points, but he's also fighting reliably.
That's
right,
fair,
like
that's fair.
he's not hiding from a fight, which Saladin's doing for most of the game. So you have 34 points that's just providing a command token and a repeater. Which doesn't feel like it's as much as either keeping it cheap with the Raven Eye, or having functionally 2 extra orders with Hector and a murdery kill man.
What other faction is Saladin in?
Hakislam.
Yeah, because in Hakislam he's got Strategos level 2.
Yes,
Yeah.
which means
you
much
can
more.
move people from groups. Yeah, so that makes it more worth it for him to bring him, I think. But
You still don't. He's a shadow of what he used to be. The fact that Strategos is around in a lot more places, and the plus command token is in a lot more places. It really and that NCO exists now.
Yeah,
makes it
NCO
like,
is the big thing.
Like
NCO
what it used to be. Like when there was no NCO and you had like a lot of dead lieutenants because you couldn't use their order, or you'd either break links or your lieutenant would just get killed. The fact that this guy existed was a really big deal. But now it's like that Gulam has +1 command token. Like
Everybody knows that.
and that other Gulam in the same group has NCO. So
but not
what do
not
you
in
do?
Starmada.
You have NCO in Starmada.
No, but it's the only way to get an extra command token in Starmada.
Sure.
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
that's true. If you wanted 5 command tokens, if you want to do something with command tokens.
If I want to drop all those mines,
Sure.
it's a lot of.
I mean, you have a sleep. If you have a sleepy security, so let's talk about the fire team stuff now to wrap this up. If you have a sleepy security fire team, you're probably not having to reform it. You know what I mean? Because it's mostly sleeping, and then your duos are just getting you there, so you're probably not reforming that either. And we talked about like 4 different duos. We talked about I really like the Psychop duo that Owen came up with the Varangian, and then of course there's the classic Shona gets you there with smoke duo as well. The Oko Lawkeeper duos. I mean, how many duos could you fit in? Let's try and make a list right now. Let's see. How many duos could we actually fit in here? So we do our Raven Eye link, right? Which you just described. So Lieutenant, dude. And then let's say you're a Kappa hacker.
So while you're figuring that out, I just want to talk about lieutenant options.
Sure.
Because you actually have a lot of lieutenant options. You can bring a Kappa as a lieutenant. It costs 1 SWIC, so it's kind of expensive. You could bring your Zeta as a lieutenant. Again, kind of risky, but it's great. Naito Santiago can be lieutenant. Hector is usually your lieutenant. You can bring him. Enza Cho is probably not going to be your lieutenant, but your backup lieutenant. Bluecoat can be lieutenant. Saladin can be lieutenant. Raven Eye can be a lieutenant. And so I feel like with Starmada, you can really keep them guessing unless it's a couple of them who's your lieutenant. And so it's hard to kind of fish them out, even if they know your faction in and out. It's easy to keep them guessing. And then with Cho on the sideline, lost lieutenant is a very low risk, which is nice. And I don't know how that is in other factions, but it's nice.
Which one would you default to? What's your like go-to lieutenant option?
In Starmada, it'd probably be a Raven Eye or Bluecoat. Unless I'm bringing Hector. It's kind of like, because if you bring Hector, he's a lot of points, and so you're kind of building a Harris around him, and you're kind of like, that is you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket with Hector. And so it's kind of like to bring Hector or not to bring Hector. Because if you bring Hector, you bring him as lieutenant, because there's no point spending all those points just to bring him on the sideline, in my opinion. And so if you don't bring Hector, then probably Bluecoat or Raven Eye, just because they're the easiest to kind of hide in the background where you don't want to get near them. And so it's just kind of, I don't want to peace trade with this 12-point model, and maybe it's lieutenant, maybe it's not. And then Cho's somewhere, and who knows what she's pretending to be as another Bluecoat or another Raven Eye somewhere. Who knows?
I mean, that feels right. I feel like you don't necessarily need a fighting lieutenant in this list.
No.
You're better served with something a little bit different.
And then you can bring either a Raptor or Bixie or the Zeta, and then have that NCO. Now, when you use a lieutenant order, do you have to declare it's an NCO?
The NCO activates their NCO skill and uses the lieutenant order.
Okay, so they
you're-
know it's an NCO.
Yeah, typically.
Oh,
yes.
that would be in your list anyway. That would be open information.
Mhm. Yeah, that they have the NCO skill as open information typically.
Gotcha.
I don't know, man. It's hard to get to 300. You even with 15 models, you have so many cheap options in here. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I mean, I guess you could just take that Knight of Santiago killer hacker with the bronze as like your big hitting pieces in the end. But like filling up my cup here was pretty easy. I'll be honest. It was not
just
hard.
throw in the Zeta.
No, I don't think you need the Zeta. I honestly don't think you need the Zeta. Like there's so many other choices you could take, and they're all pretty great. They all do work.
I've got my list, my 300.
All right, I'll tell you mine once in like 2 seconds.
So you've got the Raven Eye, Lieutenant, Raven Eye, double capital hackers, a blue coat with an SMG. You've got Parvati with a Udbot. You've got 2 instances of boarding shotgun smoke grenade Varangians, each with their own Psycop MSV1 multi-marksman. And then group 2 is a Raptor with the killer hacking device multi-rifle, with his Diva bot, obviously. And then you've got 2 duos of Lawkeeper Oko with just boarding shotguns.
That's cool.
Name of the game is your Raptor is your I'm going to push the buttons guy. And you're literally just burying the enemy in Varangian Psycops, Lawkeepers, and Okos, and just pinning them down. And if you have the opportunity to move your big link up so that it can just be an obnoxious wall of hacking and goo, do it. And then Parvati can be the I'm going to fill in wherever I need because I have my Udbot on one half and I'm on the other half.
And the Okos act as repeaters as well, so that's nice.
Yeah.
And they attack aware, so you get 2 extra orders out of that.
What's your total order count minus the impetuouses because they're going to be linked?
17, 18 nice. With Lieutenant.
Yeah, I got to 17 with the Lieutenant. Yeah, so mine is group 1's a Raven Eye Lieutenant, Raven Eye, Kappa Hacker, Blue Coat, one with a Shock Marksman. I went with the Shock Marksman over the Red Fury because I think the Shock Marksman rifle does the same job but doesn't cost the SWC, and this whole list only is 0.5 SWC.
That's
like this one's only 1
and 3.
You have so much extra SWC all the time.
Yeah, and then the other Blue Coat's an adhesive launcher. Then it's a Cyber Ghost killer hacker with the combi rifle and pitcher, a Lawkeeper boarding shotgun with the Oko, just like Owen had. But then I also took the Psycop Varangian with the MSV1 multi-marksman rifle and the submachine guns. So you do have a lot of AP in here. You don't have a lot of SWC, but you have a lot of close range brawling AP to deal with like tags and stuff. And then group 2 is Shonen of Varangian to go and melee things if we want to. And then Knight of Santiago hacker killer hacker with the bronze specialist operator with the multi-rifle and light ride stopper, and then the Kita flash pulse.
See, I wanted the Raptor for the NCO. Like I thought about the bronze, but I'm like Raptor NCO. I squeeze that little bit for doing that.
Yeah, you do. You get that extra NCO order in there,
and he can be in a marker state. So he's basically I push the button with impunity, and then I'm gone, and I'll see you when I go to get the next button on the next turn.
Yeah, definitely.
In a 5-man. Like he's in group 2, obviously, with the Lawkeepers and the Okos, who are getting their attack awares for free movement. And then he can just soak up all 5 orders if he needs.
And you could, if you wanted some healing in here, you could take the bronze paramedic instead of the bronze specialist, which might be worth doing, actually. They're the exact same points. Actually, I'd probably do that. I'd probably take the bronze paramedic instead. But he's got a heavy shotgun then.
And I got Parvati. Because Parvati,
yeah. But the bronze total immunity heavy shotgun is pretty cool, too. Yeah, I'd probably do that. I'd probably take the bronze with the boarding shotgun, then let the combi rifle and the nano pulsar on the Knight of Santiago do the rest of the heavy lifting. And he's got a tin bot, the Santiago does as well. So what we'll do is we'll put these example lists in. I mean, and to be fair too, like Owen and I are talking about an absolute like nightmare of orders. All of these models almost are in fire teams. I think the only model I don't have in a fire team is my 7-point flash bot.
I have
and the Cyber Ghost and the Cyber Ghost.
And the Raptor, but the Raptor has a Diva bot. So it's pretty close.
It's the same kind of thing, yeah. So like with 15 regular orders, everything's like super order efficient, right? Because you have all of this. Everybody's in either a duo or the core link up
Hell,
top.
even Parvati has a UDWAT. Every time I spend an order, 2 models move. Period.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You want them to, exactly. So what we'll do is we'll put these lists, and then Dan, did you come up with a base list?
I threw Hector in it.
Ooh,
so
to make it different.
So I only have 13 orders. No, I guess with Oko I have 14. So it's less order efficient, I guess. But I got Cho, Kappa Paramedic, Bluecoat, Raven Eye. And then I have Hector, Psycop, Parvati as a Harris. And then I got Shona and a Varangian. And then I got Oko and a Lawkeeper as a specialist with a comedy rifle. And then to top it off, I got a Cyber Ghost.
Sweet.
As my hacker with a hacking device plus.
Oh, I love the Cyber Ghost so much. Well, what we'll do is we'll put the code for these. I'm going to save mine. And we'll put the code for these lists in the description for this week's video. And you guys can actually check these lists out for yourselves if you want to try them out. And I'm using the desktop. These will be desktop codes. If you try to look at them on your phone, they probably won't work. Just so you know, these will be the desktop codes for the desktop, the browser version of Infinity Army 7.
I'll post a picture in the Patreon's chat of the list.
No, I'll do that too. Yeah, I'll do that right now too. That's actually a good idea.
No, I think what I've learned from this is, yeah, play it more because I don't have all the crazy fun tools that O12 have, but there's still a lot of crazy fun tools, and I guess a lot more duos can make the list a whole lot more order efficient, and instead of just like that one Harris that's trying to get up the board and murder everything. It's like spread out the effectiveness around the. I put all my eggs in one basket too often.
I think that's the thing is I think it's tempting in these like sectorials to try and build like the most powerful fire team you can, because that's sort of like their jam. When I feel like I honestly think Starmada is really interesting. I think they do something that almost no other army does, which is all of this like weird status stuff with EM and para stuff. And I think they play like a really interesting game. I think they've got a lot of order efficiency. I think they have a lot of like neat unit profiles. But I think that if you're trying to brute force with them, you're not equipped for it, right? You're literally playing like cops. You're trying to restrain people and keep them sort of like submitted, as opposed to just straight up killing them with your better weapons. You can do that by bringing the Zeta and stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of like temptation to take these big hitting pieces. Whereas I think it's funny we didn't even talk about the Chaxes. I just realized I was like, we didn't even look at those because why? So bad. But the idea of trying to make, I think that's a trap. I think whenever you play a faction, you need to lean into what makes your faction different, and you're going to have more success than trying to mimic what other factions do with the tools at your disposal.
Good point. I don't even know what other factions do, so I mean, I kind of do.
I think you do now. I think this was a really useful like start to looking at Starmada in particular, and then next week what we can do is we can go through and look at O12 in general and the things that are different, right? So like what is the vanilla, like obviously take the fire teams out, you can have duos but they're really limited. And then what do you gain for doing that? Because honestly, like none of what we talked about this week's going to change. Like everyone's still going to sit in those same roles, but you're going to have a few new units we can talk about, and how does that change it up? Because I think a lot of like, apart from the duos and stuff, a lot of these lists could be identical in. Actually, there's nothing I don't think that I've taken in this list. Maybe the Knight of Santiago that isn't available in O12.
Yeah, Knight of Santiago and Bixie.
And Bixie, yeah. You don't get Bixie, really?
Nope.
Weird. Oh, but you get some new things. You get the other you get diggers and trip hammers.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of good stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, there'll be fun stuff that you can still take. And we talk about the razors and stuff too, and dakinis. Yes. Oh, you get more Aleph stuff. That's right. You get divas and dakinis.
The Lynx,
Razor. Yeah, Team Serious.
Gangbusters.
Talking about cool.
Alpha.
And the Alpha, and we'll talk about those new units next week. So I hope this was useful for people listening and thinking about playing Starmada or O12 in general. And big thanks to Dan for putting up together the show notes and leading us through his faction. And we'll do the rest of it next week, which is, I think, the part of it you're more familiar with because you've been playing mostly O12.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well,
Right.
that's it. Coming up next week, obviously, we'll have the O12 thing. Also, this weekend, past when you guys are hearing this, we'll have just run the Tactical Awareness Winter War tournaments. You can see lots of pictures of that up online on our Facebook page. You can catch up with us on Discord and on Facebook. And of course, if you are a patron, then you are listening to this 5 days early, and you'll have already been through and listened to this podcast before the tournament happens. So stay tuned for the weekend and what we got coming up.
So Ash, for the Monday listeners, how'd the tournament go?
It's going to be great.
It went perfectly.
It went perfectly.
Wow, it was so
It went off
amazing.
without a hitch. Everyone had a great time. And I guess I could spell right now. I've already reserved the space for Spring Offensive, which will be April 23rd, 2023, which will be our next seasonal tournament. And it'll be the middle tournament, basically. I'm thinking that what we'll end up having is we'll have Spring Offensive. They're gonna have SummerSlam in the summertime, and then we'll have Fallout, which will be our fall one, which will be the one that brings in the new season. That'll be our new season tournament, because every October is when the new ITS pack comes out. So probably this 2023 will be a shortened year because it'll just be Winter War, Spring Offensive, and SummerSlam, and then Fallout will be when we start doing the next one. But we're already registered. We got the space. We'll be throwing down and doing a whole new event, and I'm gonna try and expand the location. I mean, obviously I haven't actually done it yet, but I was there today dropping off the rest of our deposits, so hopefully we'll be able to grow the tournament to even more players, because we got more players than I planned on, so people are bringing tables and stuff, so I'm pretty excited. And hopefully you guys can come down for April too.
And Owen and I may or may not make a guest appearance.
That's right. Owen's gonna try and
I mean, I'll go.
get down.
Come pick me up at the airport. I don't mind. It's easy.
Dan,
to
you
get
can drive me to
time
the airport. That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. And I have 2 guest rooms for you guys to sleep in, so it's all good. Which are my
back
kids'
to the
rooms, but-
basement for you.
That's
Dan.
right.
Yeah. Well,
You can sleep on
joke's
the
on
floor.
you. That little Fallout couch covers at least 1/3 of my body.
It's an IKEA whatchamacallit futon, and it's perfectly adequate.
You ever seen a single bed?
Not
It's like
6
that,
foot
but
7.
half.
Don't worry. I'm only 6'2".
That's right. All 3 of us are pointlessly tall. I understand. It's not the greatest thing to sleep on. So anyway,
It
big,
was fine. It's fine.
big thanks for everybody listening. And we'll see you next week to fill in the rest of O12 and then talk about the next faction we're going to do.
Bye.
Bye.